Chapter 2771, Chapter 2771, Change. Chapter 2771, Change. The news that the Sword World was about to establish the 9th Sword Peak spread rapidly among the 8 Sword Peaks, causing a huge commotion, and the cultivators were in an uproar. Even the Immortal King experts cultivating in Myriad Sword Palace were shocked. What shocked many sword cultivators even more was that the Peak Master of the 9th Sword Peak had already been decided. It was not the many Immortal Kings of Myriad Sword Palace, but Su Zhu, a celestial being perfected immortal who had only been in the sword world for slightly more than 3 years. This outcome exceeded the expectations of all the sword cultivators. Be it in terms of cultivation realm, seniority, connections, or foundation, there were too many cultivators in the sword world who were above Su Zimo. Not to mention, the status of a peak master was extremely important. Even many Immortal King experts cultivating in Myriad Sword Palace did not receive such treatment. For the past few days, Immortal Kings of Myriad Sword Palace would visit the cave abodes of the 8 peak masters every day and ask about this matter. The 8 of them could not say it explicitly and could only say that this was the Iron Crown Old Man's decision. Hearing that, the Immortal Kings no longer questioned. There were 3 decision-makers in the sword world and the Iron Crown Old Man was one of them. Although the 3 of them were old, they were once the strongest emperors of the sword world and made supreme reputations in the Trichiliachasm back then. The 3 of them were the key reason why the sword world was a super large world in this generation. The experts cultivating in Myriad Sword Palace now, be it Immortal Kings or Emperors, had more or less been guided by the 3 of them. The Immortal King experts respected the Iron Crown Old Man and the other 2 from the bottom of their hearts. On the side of the 8 Peak Masters, apart from dealing with the Immortal Kings of Myriad Sword Palace, they had to deal with the tens of millions of sword cultivators who were in an uproar. There were more than 1,000 legacy disciples under each sword peak. Among the 8 sword peaks, there were at least 2,000 legacy disciples whose cultivation realms were above Su Zimo's. What's up with this Su Zhu? Wasn't he just Junior Sister Beiming's master previously? How did he suddenly become the 9th peak master in the blink of an eye? I heard that this person has already comprehended the peerless divine power, the immortal vanquishing sword. Even if he comprehended the immortal vanquishing sword, there's no need to make such a huge deal, right? Why open a 9th sword peak for him and even make him the peak master? Indeed, no matter you look at it, Su Zhu doesn't seem to be that capable. Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, Sword Immortal Tai Lai, Yi Wuchen, and the other top perfected immortals of the 8 sword peaks gathered together and discussed this matter. Li Shui of Fiend Sword Peak frowned and asked, "Brother Wang, do you know what happened? Why did they suddenly want to establish the 9th sword peak and let an outsider become the peak master?" Wang Dong said, "I only know that fellow Daoist Su Zhu has indeed comprehended the peerless divine power, the immortal vanquishing sword. Later on, he was brought away by the peak masters to Myriad Sword Palace. Thereafter, news of the 9th sword peak spread." Pausing for a moment, Wang Dong smiled bitterly. "Brother Li, fellow Daoist Su Zhu can't be considered an outsider now. Instead, he's the peak master of the 9th sword peak. If we see him again in the future, we'll have to treat him with respect." Li Shui did not reply and merely harumphed softly. Gong Suanyu said in a deep voice, "Not long after Su Zhu arrived at Myriad Sword Palace, the sword steely resonated. Thereafter, a terrifying sword intent descended. Perhaps that's related to the 9th sword peak?" Qin Zhong of Tyrant Sword Peak was a little displeased and shouted, "So what if the sword steely resonated? When Sister Beiming underwent tribulation transcendence, the sword steely resonated as well. However, nobody mentioned anything about opening a 9th sword peak for her." Sword Immortal Tai Lai shook his head as well. "Most importantly, it's indeed difficult to convince the masses to let a celestial being perfected immortal become a peak master. Isn't that a little ridiculous?" Shun Yu nodded and said as well, "Let's not talk about others. Just any one of us is above Su Zhu in terms of cultivation, qualifications, connections, and combat strength. Although he comprehended the peerless divine power, the immortal vanquishing sword, he's only at the celestial being realm after all. His essence spirit is limited and he can't unleash the full power of the immortal vanquishing sword. Amitabha. Monk Ju Jian of Zen Sword Peak nodded slightly as well. Even if we had to choose someone from the perfected immortals, Lin Xuanzhen is probably the most qualified one. Yi Wuchen, who was also from Extreme Sword Peak, was expressionless and merely said indifferently, "It's a pity that this person's cultivation realm is not high enough and is not qualified to fight me fairly. Otherwise, I'd like to spar with him." With the past 3 years, the few of them were relatively familiar with Su Zimo. However, prior to this, they only treated him as a guest from afar and treated him with respect as peers of the same generation. However, now that Su Zimo had become the peak master of the 9th Sword Peak in a single leap and his status was above the few of them, they could not help but feel upset. Of course, Wang Dong and the others were only complaining. They would not really cause trouble. After all, this was a decision made by an emperor expert of the sword world. Even if they were dissatisfied, they could not change it. Even the 8 peak masters did not say anything, so they could only accept it. Li Shui flicked his nails which clanked. Although he's the peak master of the 9th Sword Peak, he needs capabilities to be able to establish himself in the sword world. There's still a long way to go. I want to see how famous the 9th Sword Peak that was established for him will be in the future. There were often spars and fights between the 8 Sword Peaks. Now, there was another 9th Sword Peak. Although it was comparable to the 8 Sword Peaks in name, if it were to consistently rank last in the spars between the Sword Peaks, it would definitely attract even greater criticism. After this matter spread in the sword world, Su Zimo could clearly sense a subtle change in the attitudes of the sword cultivators towards him. When Wang Dong and the others saw him, they would still pay respects as juniors according to the rules. However, the way they looked at him seemed much more distant and colder. Su Zimo was not surprised by this change. On the one hand, due to the sudden change in his identity, making him comparable to the 8 peak masters, he was suddenly above Wang Dong and the others in terms of status and seniority. It was difficult for Wang Dong and the others to accept that right away. There would definitely be some estrangement between them. On the other hand, it was also because Wang Dong and the others were definitely dissatisfied with him being the peak master of the 9th Sword Peak. Wang Dong and the others could not be blamed for that indeed. He had just arrived in the sword world for more than 3 years and was only a celestial being perfected immortal. He had not done anything for the sword world or made any contributions before ascending to the position of the peak master of the 9th Sword Peak. Anyone would feel conflicted. This was human nature. Su Zimo could completely understand the attitudes of Wang Dong and the others. Not only that, as time passed, Su Zimo had an even better impression of Wang Dong's group and the other sword cultivators. Although these people were indignant and conflicted, they did not plot against him or cause trouble for him, let alone mock him. Although they were displeased, they respected the decision of the sword world and treated Su Zimo as someone from the sword world and one of their own. However, if Su Zimo wanted to truly obtain the recognition of the sword cultivators, his status as the peak master of the 9th Sword Peak was far from enough. Su Zimo did not care about that and had no intention of changing things. To him, the most important thing was to make use of the time he spent cultivating in the sword world to increase his cultivation as much as possible. One day, he would kill his way back to the divine firmament immortal domain and the academy. Chapter 2772, Chapter 2772 Congratulations. Chapter 2772 Congratulations. Creating the 9th Sword Peak was far more troublesome than Su Zimo had imagined. It was an extremely vast and complicated project. The structure of the 8 Sword Peaks had been passed down for many years. If one looked down from above, they could vaguely see that the continent where the 8 Sword Peaks were located was a sword-shaped land. Between the sword-shaped land, the 8 Sword Peaks and Myriad Sword Palace, there were countless formation patterns that were difficult to see with the naked eye. They interweaved in the starry skies and formed a powerful sword formation. Once it was fully activated, the entire sword world would release an extremely terrifying killing power to defend against external enemies. But now, there was a 9th Sword Peak to be established outside the 8 Sword Peaks. This meant that if they wanted to integrate the 9th Sword Peak into the sword formation, they would have to undo the original formation. Many formation patterns had to be erased and rearranged. The cultivators who set up this sword formation were at least Immortal King expert. It was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to open up a large piece of land out of thin air in the starry skies. The Emperor experts of the sword world had to take action and transport back dead stars and lifeless lands from other regions of the upper world. Every single star brought back was not inferior to the Dragon Abyss star. However, the scale of the ninth continent of the sword world had to be much bigger than the Dragon Abyss star. At the very least, it had to be comparable to the divine firmament immortal domain. Millions of stars were probably required to condense a land the size of the divine firmament immortal domain. Gathering such a large number of stars together, the Emperor experts joined forces and shattered them, condensing and hammering them continuously. In reality, the entire process involved the combined efforts of the Emperor experts to forge the ninth sword-shaped continent into a peerless immortal sword. Gathering 1,000,000 stars and condensing the essence of heaven and earth required more than 10 emperors to join forces. One could imagine how difficult it was. The formation of the ninth sword-shaped continent alone took more than 400 years. Thereafter, a mountain peak soared into the sky in the center of the continent. Su Zimo imprinted the inheritance and sword intent of the sword burial Tao on the sword peak and fused it with the entire continent. Only then would the ninth sword peak truly take shape. If any sword cultivator wanted to comprehend the sword burial Tao, they could come to this sword peak to do it themselves. During this period of time, Su Zimo cultivated while watching the evolution of the ninth sword peak. For him, it was a rare opportunity to be able to watch the emperors join forces to forge it. Of course, the formation of the ninth sword peak was not over yet. They had to set up sword formation patterns on the ninth sword peak before fusing it with the sword formation of the other 8 sword peaks and myriad sword palace before it was truly over. Su Zimo had dabbled in array formations before as well. However, he could not interfere in a sword formation of this level. He knew that it would definitely take an extremely long time to set up formation patterns of this scale and level. It would take at least a few hundred years. For the rest of the time, Su Zimo established his own cave abode on the ninth sword peak and officially entered it. The ninth sword peak was officially named Sword Burial Peak as well. Beiming Shui was the first to move her cave abode to Sword Burial Peak. She was Su Zimo's eldest disciple to begin with, and it was understandable for her to become a disciple of Sword Burial Peak. However, the peak master of Carnage Sword Peak, Lu Yun, could not accept it right away. He complained to Su Zimo many times, but Beiming Shui was unmoved. In the end, he could only let it go. Apart from Beiming Shui, the peak masters of the 8 sword peaks sent over some ordinary disciples of the Black, Earth and Heaven essence realms as well to prevent the ninth sword peak from appearing too deserted since it had just been established. However, no legacy disciple was willing to come to Sword Burial Peak. On the one hand, Su Zimo was only a celestial being perfected immortal. More than half of the legacy disciples of the 8 sword peaks were either of the same cultivation realm as him or of a higher cultivation realm. It was impossible for those legacy disciples to become Su Zimo's disciples. The remaining convergence perfected immortals had Immortal King experts as their masters. There was no reason for them to head over to Sword Burial Peak and become the disciple of a celestial being perfected immortal. On the other hand, sword cultivators who could cultivate to the perfected one realm had cultivated in the sword world for many years and had deep feelings for their respective sword peaks and fellow disciples. Naturally, they would not change factions easily. That way, although the ninth sword peak was successfully established and some ordinary disciples were forcefully stuffed over by the 8 peak masters to show their support, it still looked cold and desolate. There were only 2 perfected immortals in Sword Burial Peak, Su Zimo and Beiming Shui. One was a convergence perfected immortal and the other was a celestial being perfected immortal. In the eyes of the other sword cultivators, it was way too shabby and even a little sad. The 2 from Sword Burial Peak did not think much of it. Instead, they enjoyed it. Both master and disciple cultivated wholeheartedly and felt that it was better if there were fewer people. After all, it was more peaceful. The news of the opening of the ninth sword peak had spread long ago. During this period of time, there would occasionally be cultivators from other worlds who came to offer their congratulations and even send some gifts. Most of these people were from the lesser and middle worlds in the surroundings. Lesser worlds such as Blue Cloud World, Immortal Medicine World, Treasure World, and Seven Stars Sword World had no Emperor Realm experts presiding over them. The strongest people in those worlds were immortal kings. Even so, one could tell the strength and influence of the Sword World. If these lesser worlds wanted to survive in the upper world, they would either have to rely on super-large worlds or be on good terms with the surrounding super-large worlds or greater worlds. Otherwise, if there was any conflict or unforeseen event, these lesser worlds might be destroyed. After all, a top immortal king expert alone might be able to destroy a lesser world. In order to express their sincerity, most of these lesser worlds had immortal kings visiting with the congratulatory gifts personally. When they saw that the peak master of the ninth sword peak was only a young celestial being perfected immortal, they were dumbfounded and shocked. If not for the introduction of Lu Yun and the other peak masters and the fact that Su Zimo was sitting side by side with the other peak masters, these immortal king experts would not have believed it. After confirming Su Zimo's identity, even though they were all immortal king experts, these people were still polite to him. Although they were surprised, the immortal kings did not dare to show any contempt. Su Zimo was only a perfected immortal, but he was backed by the entire sword world. This was the deterrence the status of the peak master of the ninth sword peak had against others. It was a strange feeling. Although Su Zimo was only a celestial being perfected immortal, the visiting immortal kings had to be polite to him. It was no wonder why Lu Yun said that the status as a peak master was a protection talisman for him. At the very least, no one from the lesser and middle worlds would dare to attack him. From a certain perspective, Su Zimo's current status was even higher than the sect master of the Academy of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. Chapter 2773, Chapter 2773, Venus Black Gold Stone. Chapter 2773, Venus Black Gold Stone. Time flew, and before he knew it, Su Zimo had been in the sword world for 1,000 years. The ninth sword peak had already fused perfectly into the sword world, a part of the 9 sword peaks that surrounded Myriad Sword Palace. Of course, the overall strength of the ninth sword peak was far inferior to the 8 sword peaks, and its reputation seemed undeserved. For the past 1,000 years, although there were some ordinary disciples of the Black, Earth and Heaven Essence realms who came to the ninth sword peak to cultivate, no one had stepped into the perfected one realm. Therefore, there were still only 2 perfected immortals on the ninth sword peak. After entering the perfected one realm, the speed of cultivation would decrease significantly and it would become extremely difficult just to break through a minor realm. Beiming Shui had been in the perfected one realm for 1,000 years and her cultivation realm was still in its previous state without much improvement. It was the same for Yun Ting of Extreme Sword Peak. When cultivating in the perfected one realm, time would be extended and magnified infinitely. Sometimes, even paragons and monster incarnates would be stuck at a single cultivation realm and could not advance for tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years. However, Su Zimo's situation was a little special. Under normal circumstances, his cultivation speed should slow down as well after he used up the energy he absorbed in the Emperor's tomb. However, 1,000 years ago, he synthesized 2 taboo mystic classics and created the Sword Burial Tao. All these years, as long as he buried the myriad sword Taos of the sword world into his sword Tao, he would continue to strengthen and increase his cultivation. His sword Tao was like a sword tomb that buried all swords. The body of the creation Green Lotus was also the reason why there were no conflicts within him despite having so many sword Taos buried. More importantly, when Su Zimo wielded the duckweed sword and had the enhancement of the body seed, he could achieve twice the results with half the effort in cultivating the sword Tao. The duckweed sword could help Su Zimo comprehend the sword Tao to the greatest extent. Because Beiming Shui cultivated the martial Tao and condensed a sword-type martial spirit, Su Zimo could not compare to her in terms of talent in the sword Tao. However, in a sense, the existence of the duckweed sword replaced the role of a sword-type martial spirit. For the past 1,000 years, there were many cultivators who ascended from the lower worlds and landed in the sword world. However, almost all the cultivators who ascended from the lower worlds were scattered on the 8 sword peaks and there were extremely few cultivators who descended on the 9th sword peak. The main reason was that the ninth sword peak lacked a peerless treasure that could gather heaven and earth essence chi and transform it into a powerful sword chi. For example, in the center of the heavenly world, there was the builder tree. In the 9 firmament immortal domain, there were also rare flora items such as the immortal peach tree and the ginseng fruit tree. Such peerless treasures were rare in the world, and most of them had long been occupied by some powerful worlds. It was even harder to find peerless treasures that were suitable for the sword world. For example, if the immortal peach tree and ginseng fruit tree were to be moved to the sword world, they would not be of much use and they would not be able to transform the heaven and earth essence chi into sword chi. For the past 1,000 years, Su Zimo would attempt to communicate with the martial Dao prime body every once in a while. However, there was no reaction. It was unknown if the martial Dao prime body and the void yakshas escape into the ghost Dao was smooth or if they encountered any danger. The ghost world was completely different from the hell world. Because the hell world was damaged and the laws were incomplete, there could be no emperor experts. Therefore, there were no living beings there that could threaten the martial Dao prime body. However, it was different for the ghost world. Not only were there many emperor experts in the ghost world, there was even a great emperor, Brahma Ghost Mother. The void yaksha had once committed a heinous crime in the ghost world and was exiled by Brahma Ghost Mother to the Nether River, leaving him to fend for himself. The martial Dao prime body and the void yaksha escaped into the ghost world together. It was truly unknown if it was a good idea for them to use that passageway to return to the medium Kiliakasm. Of course, even if the martial Dao prime body and the void yaksha were safe in the ghost world, the Green Lotus true body could not establish a connection with them. The medium Kiliakasm and the ghost world were 2 parallel and independent worlds. Unless the martial Dao prime body returned to the medium Kiliakasm or they were in a same world, the 2 true bodies would be blocked by the world barrier and it would be difficult for them to establish a connection across 2 independent worlds. On this day, Peak Master Lu Yun of Carnage Sword Peak, Peak Master Yulan of Sever Sword Peak and Peak Master Feng Shu of Illusory Sword Peak came to visit. Lu Yun shook his head gently and said helplessly, "Brother Su, you're sure taking it easy. With the way things are developing, when will your sword burial peak ever rise?" "Exactly." Feng Shu added, "Let me tell you, many legacy disciples of the various sword peaks are dissatisfied with you." Su Zimo did not care about that. "There's no hurry. The inheritance of the sword burial Dao is there. I'll just wait for those who are fated." Indeed, he could not be blamed for such a thing. None of the perfected immortals of the various sword peaks were willing to come to sword burial peak. Without a stabilizing treasure that gathered essence chi, it was difficult for cultivators who ascended from the lower worlds to land on sword burial peak as well. It was difficult for sword burial peak to rise and grow to the level of the 8 sword peaks without hundreds of thousands or even millions of years of accumulation. "Brother Su, I have good news." The few of them chatted casually for a while before Lu Yun revealed a mysterious smile. "We might be able to get our hands on a stabilizing treasure for the 9th sword peak. I just received news that there's a Venus black gold stone in the blessed heaven world." "Oh." Su Zimo was slightly surprised. He had heard of the Venus black gold stone before. That peerless treasure was a supreme grade item among metal ores and contained black gold chi. It specialized in killing and was innately compatible with the sword Dao. If a trace of the Venus black gold stone could be infused into the forging of an immortal sword, its killing power would increase exponentially. Such a treasure was indeed rare. Yulan nodded slightly as well. This Venus black gold stone is the most suitable stabilizing treasure for sword burial peak. In reality, all these years, the experts of the sword world had never given up on searching for a stabilizing treasure suitable for the 9th sword peak. Now that they heard the news of the Venus black gold stone, the 3 peak masters looked even more excited than Su Zimo. "Where is the blessed heaven world?" Su Zimo asked. "I'm a little unfamiliar with that world. Is it a lesser world?" When they heard that, a strange expression flashed across the faces of the 3 peak masters. Lu Yun shook his head gently. To be precise, the blessed heaven world is not ranked among the normal worlds. However, if it has to be classified, it'll definitely be a super large world. Feng Shu explained, "The origin of the blessed heaven world is extremely mysterious. Even we don't know about it. Those old fellows of our sword world should know something. However, they're all very secretive about it. Yulan said, all we know is that the status of the blessed heaven world in the Trichiliocosm is the most special and extremely ancient. It might have been born the moment the upper world existed. Furthermore, although the upper world has experienced many eras and major calamities, the blessed heaven world has always stood strong and passed down its legacy till this day. Is it that incredible? Su Zimo was secretly speechless. Chapter 2774, Chapter 2774, Heading to the Blessed Heaven World. Chapter 2774, Heading to the Blessed Heaven World. Lu Yun and the other two peak masters were peak immortal king experts. Even so, they could not help but reveal reverence at the mention of the Blessed Heaven World. Lu Yun said in a deep voice, if there's any world in the Trichiliocosm one should avoid being on bad terms with, it will definitely be the Blessed Heaven World. Even if many super-large worlds join forces, we might not be able to shake it. Yulan nodded and said as well, the strength of the Blessed Heaven World is indeed unfathomable. Even Emperor experts have to be obedient when they enter the Blessed Heaven World and not violate the rules of the Blessed Heaven World. Otherwise, they will definitely die. Su Zimo's expression changed. He could tell that there was an underlying meaning and could not help but ask, were there Emperor experts who died in the Blessed Heaven World? Yes. Lu Yun said, as far as I know, none of the Emperor experts who tried to enter the Blessed Heaven World to investigate its secret or create ruckuses were spared. Su Zimo was silent in deep thought. In that case, the Blessed Heaven World was indeed mysterious. Not only did it stand tall after so many eras, it could even make the sword world so wary. A moment later, Su Zimo asked, since the Blessed Heaven World is so powerful, how could they give up the Venus Black Gold Stone so easily? Feng Shu said, Brother Su, you might not know this, but the Blessed Heaven World is considered the largest chamber of commerce in the upper world. Apart from the free trading market that has living beings of the 10,000 races from all over the upper world, there's also a Blessed Pavilion. In the Blessed Pavilion, there are countless unique treasures of the upper world. It's no exaggeration to say that if a treasure can't be found in the Blessed Pavilion, it'll be difficult to find it elsewhere. In that case, what sort of a treasure do I need to prepare to exchange for this Venus Black Gold Stone? Su Zimo asked again. At a certain level of rarity, it was difficult to estimate the number of essence spirit stones a unique treasure could be worth. Most of the time, they were bartered. The Venus Black Gold Stone was such a treasure. There's no need for any treasures. Just head straight to the Blessed Heaven World. Pausing for a moment, Lu Yun smiled mysteriously. If you want to buy things in the Blessed Pavilion, you don't need essence spirit stones or treasures. You'll know when you arrive in the Blessed Heaven World. Su Zimo asked, when do we leave? The Venus Black Gold Stone was meant to be a stabilizing treasure for Sword Burial Peak. As Peak Master, he had to follow them to the Blessed Heaven World no matter what. Let's do it tomorrow morning. Lu Yun said, we're just informing you first. We'll have to ask Lin Xuanzhen and the others later. Lin Xuanzhen? Su Zimo was surprised and asked, she's going too? In the past 1,000 years, there were very few legacy disciples who came to Sword Burial Peak. However, Lin Xuanzhen came 3 times and stopped in front of Sword Burial Peak for a long time before leaving. Lu Yun smiled and nodded. Whether or not we can get to purchase this Venus Black Gold Stone will largely depend on Lin Xuanzhen. Yulan shook her head gently. Xuanzhen has yet to comprehend the immortal vanquishing sword after all. Although she's unrivaled in the perfected one realm of our sword world, in the Trichiliocosm, she's still a little inferior against the top-notch perfected spirits. Any peak perfected spirit who comprehended a peerless divine power is enough to defeat her. Perfected spirit was the general term for all perfected one-realm experts from the 10,000 races, including perfected immortals and perfected fiends. Feng Shu said, this trip to the Blessed Heaven World might also be an opportunity for Lin Xuanzhen. She has long comprehended the immortal vanquishing sword to the quasi-peerless level. She just lacks an opportunity. The true immortal vanquishing sword can only be condensed through the baptism of slaughter and blood. Yulan said, no matter what, It won't be enough to just depend on Shuanjin alone if we want to get our hands on the Venus Black Gold Stone. We'll have to rely on the combined forces of a few peak legacy disciples from the 8 sword peaks. Lu Yun said, "Don't worry, junior sister Yu. Wang Dong of my Carnage Sword Peak's cultivation has deepened over the years and his combat strength has increased. This time round, he'll do his best to assist Lin Shuanjin." Feng Shu added, "Shen Yu of Illusory Sword Peak will follow as well." Su Zimo could roughly tell that there might be some battles between peak-perfected immortals during this trip to the Blessed Heaven world. The reason why Lu Yun and the others did not include Su Zimo and his sword burial peak into the conversation was not because they were looking down on him. It was because Su Zimo was only a celestial being perfected immortal right now. There was a difference of 2 minor cultivation realms between celestial being and paradise void perfected immortals, and the difference was way too great. In the opinion of Lu Yun and the others, even if Su Zimo comprehended the immortal vanquishing sword, he would not be able to unleash the true power of the peerless divine power and was far from reaching the level of a peak-perfected immortal. The next morning, Su Zimo brought Beiming Shui to Myriad Sword Palace early on. Before long, Lu Yun arrived with Wang Dong and Feng Shu with Shen Yu. From the looks of it, the sword world attached great importance to this trip to the Blessed Heaven world. Apart from Lu Yun, Carnage Sword Peak also brought Wang Dong, a peak paradise void perfected immortal. It was the same for the other sword peaks. For example, Gong Suanyu of 5 Elements Sword Peak, Sword Immortal Tai Lai of Extreme Sword Peak, Li Shui of Fiend Sword Peak, Monk Ju Jian of Zen Sword Peak and Qin Zhong of Tyrant Sword Peak arrived. Yun Ting was in seclusion and did not accompany them. Peak Master Yu Lan of Sever Sword Peak brought Lin Shuanjin and was the last to arrive. Su Zimo had never interacted with Lin Shuanjin before and had only taken a glance from afar. This was the first time he was observing her up close. Lin Shuanjin was indeed extremely beautiful and was not inferior to the 4 great fairies. However, she was expressionless and had a cold aura. After arriving, she looked straight ahead and exuded an unapproachable aura without greeting anyone. Right then, Lin Shuanjin seemed to have sensed Su Zimo's gaze and suddenly looked up. Thereafter, she nodded slightly in Su Zimo's direction. That surprised Su Zimo and he was caught off guard. He was stunned for a moment and did not return the greeting. By the time he reacted, Lin Shuanjin had already retracted her gaze. Although Su Zimo was puzzled, he did not think too much about it. At that moment, everyone who were headed to the Blessed Heaven world were present. Apart from Lu Yun and the other peak masters, the disciples of the 8 sword peaks were all peak-perfected immortals. On Sword Burial Peak's side, Peak Master Su Zimo was only a celestial being perfected immortal. Standing side by side with Lu Yun and the others, he looked a little striking. Beiming Shui's cultivation realm was even lower and could not compare to Wang Dong and the others at all. Sword Burial Peak only had 2 perfected immortals in total. No matter what, Su Zimo had to bring Beiming Shui along so that she could broaden her horizons in the Blessed Heaven world. Haha. The Peak Master of Tyrant Sword Peak burst into laughter. It's quite a rare sight for 5 of our Sword World's 9 Peak Masters to appear at the same time. For this trip to the Blessed Heaven world, there was Carnage Sword Peak's Peak Master Lu Yun, Sever Sword Peak's Peak Master Yu Lan, Illusory Sword Peak's Peak Master Feng Shu, Tyrant Sword Peak's Peak Master Bai Tianxing and finally, Sword Burial Peak's Peak Master Su Zimo. Lu Yun smiled as well. Once we reach the Blessed Heaven world, it'll be good to let Brother Su show his face and let the living beings of the 10,000 races of the upper world know who the 9th Peak Master of our sword world is. Let's go. Lu Yun and the others arrived at the teleportation hall of the Myriad Swords Palace. With a holler, they activated the teleportation formation and disappeared with a flash of light. Chapter 2775, Chapter 2775, Blood River in the Starry Skies. Chapter 2775, Blood River in the Starry Skies. Most of the worlds were too far apart and required a long travel through the starry skies. Therefore, there were very few teleportation formations that could teleport into a place directly. Furthermore, it was also a potential risk of living beings of other races could teleport into a world at will. Long-distance teleportation in the endless starry skies was not easy. Even immortal king experts who had the ability to tear through the void did not dare to travel through the spatial tunnels casually. That was because there were many unknown danger zones hidden in the endless starry skies, such as forbidden grounds or black holes. If one was careless and was swept into them, even immortal king experts would die easily. Su Zimo and the others used the teleportation formation of the Sword World to leave. Lu Yun and the other 3 immortal kings controlled an immortal boat spirit treasure and shuttled through a spatial tunnel. They kept their eyes on the map to prevent them from deviating from their path. If they encountered danger, they could avoid it in time. Due to the distance, even with immortal king experts leading everyone through a spatial tunnel, it would take them a few days to reach the blessed heaven world. The immortal boat sped forward rapidly. However, through the spatial tunnel, everyone could still appreciate the magnificence of the boundless starry skies of the upper world. They could only feel how insignificant they were when they were in the vast sea of stars. Apart from the 4 immortal king experts, Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, Sword Immortal Tai Lai and the others were a little excited and chatted happily. They had not left the Sword World for a long time. Furthermore, they were heading to the mysterious blessed heaven world this time round. Li Shui, who carried a pitch-black sword on his back, said, "I usually feel restrained when sparring with my fellow disciples. I hope I can fight to my heart's content in the blessed heaven world this time round." The requirements for sparring between disciples of the Sword World were extremely strict. Not only did they have to be of the same cultivation realm, they could not use essence spirit secret skills or fight to the death. Even if one cultivated the Carnage Sword Dao, they had to hold back when attacking. Gong Suanyu smiled. "Brother Li, don't worry. Once we're on the evil fiend battlefield, we can attack as much as we want. There's no need to hold back and we can kill to our heart's content." Evil fiend battlefield? Not far away, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Before he could ask, Lu Yun suddenly turned around and looked at Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu and the others with a serious expression. "The few of you must not be careless. The evil fiend battlefield is extraordinary and there are many top experts among those sin spirits and evil fiends. Their combat strength is definitely not inferior to yours." Yu Lan nodded as well. "Even Lin Xuanzhen has to be careful inside, let alone the few of you. At that time, you can't split up. You have to ensure your safety first." Feng Shu added, "Furthermore, almost all the perfected immortals who dare to head to the blessed heaven world are paragons and monster incarnates of the major worlds. None of them are to be trifled with. Fighting is prohibited in the blessed heaven world. However, it's hard to say in the evil fiend battlefield." "What's the evil fiend battlefield you guys were talking about?" Su Zimo was puzzled when he heard that. He did not know what sin spirits and the evil fiend battlefield that Lu Yun and the others were talking about had to do with the blessed heaven world, so he could not help but ask. "Actually, the evil fiend battlefield is." Lu Yun smiled and was about to explain when his expression changed. He looked out of the spatial tunnel with a grim expression and gradually frowned. At that moment, the others in the Sword World also noticed the abnormality outside. Through the spatial tunnel, one could see that the starry skies outside was covered in a faint blood fog. It was unknown what had happened. The immortal boat gradually slowed down and everyone could see it even more clearly. In the starry skies outside, a scarlet and wide river of blood floated with countless corpses bobbing up and down. It was a shocking sight. The blood river flowed quietly in the starry skies with no end in sight. There were countless corpses inside like the sand of the Ganges River. It was way too tragic. Even though they were in the spatial tunnel, everyone from the Sword World seemed to be able to smell blood. They were shocked and could not bear to see it. There were probably hundreds of millions of dead beings at a single glance. What exactly happened here? Yu Lan frowned slightly and said sternly, "Judging from the location, this should be the 7 Stars Sword World." "Yes." Lu Yun nodded. "These corpses are all cultivators of the 7 Stars Sword World." 7 Stars Sword World? That world sounded familiar and Su Zimo fell into deep thought. Before long, he recalled that when the 9th Sword Peak was established, some lesser worlds came to congratulate him. Among them were people from the 7 Stars Sword World. At that time, an immortal king expert of the Seven Stars Sword world even came to congratulate him with a gift. "Let's go out and take a look," Lu Yun said in a low voice and steered the immortal boat through the barrier of the spatial tunnel, returning to the starry skies outside. Upon arriving in the starry skies, everyone could sense it even more clearly. The stench of blood assaulted their faces and was suffocating. Lu Yun steered the immortal boat slowly above the blood river. Everyone lowered their heads and could clearly see the tragic corpses floating in the blood river. Some of them had eyes widened in grievance. Some of their heads were shattered. Some of the corpses were sliced into pieces. Most of the corpses were cultivators of the black, earth and heaven essence realms who had not even condensed their Tao fruits. Although Su Zimo was used to seeing death, he could not help but feel his heart skip a beat when he saw the corpses of more than 100 million cultivators so close. Dai Yu and the human monarch had once told him about the cruelty and bloodshed of the upper world. He had also personally experienced many hardships in the heavenly world. But now, when he saw the scene before him, he truly understood what cruelty and bloodshed were. Feng Shu said in a deep voice, "These cultivators should have died not long ago. Let's take a look at the front." Lu Yun said in a deep voice as he steered the immortal boat and carried everyone towards the source of the blood river. Before long, 7 dull gigantic stars filled with cracks appeared in the starry skies ahead and were filled with blood. Blood was still flowing slowly through the cracks of the 7 stars and gathered continuously in the starry skies, forming the blood river that stretched for thousands of kilometers earlier on. The location of the 7 stars was the former 7 Stars Sword world. However, the 7 Stars Sword world had already turned into ruins, leaving only endless corpses bobbing in the blood river. Before long, the 7 gigantic stars would collapse completely and dissipate in the boundless starry skies as well. There was silence on the immortal boat. Everyone looked at the scene before them in silence for a long time. A moment later, Yulan sighed. The 7 Stars Sword world was destroyed just like that. Fury surged in Lu Yun's heart as he clenched his fists. It's one thing to destroy the world's surface, but to slaughter hundreds of millions of living beings is way too cruel and heartless. Who could have done it? The Peak Master of Tyrant Sword Peak, Bai Tianxing, asked with a frown. Feng Shu shook his head. There are too many experts who have the ability to destroy an entire world. However, it's probably not the work of a single person to slaughter so many living beings. They were probably surrounded and killed by the army of a certain world. Chapter 2776, Chapter 2776, Heavenly Eye World. Chapter 2776, Heavenly Eye World. In a lesser world like the 7 Stars Sword world, the strongest expert was only an immortal king. Destroying the 7 Stars Sword world was something that any heaven-grade faction in the divine firmament immortal domain could do. If a lesser world like that wanted to survive in the upper world, they would have to be careful the entire time, as though they were treading on thin ice. They would either have to rely on some super-large worlds or think of ways to befriend the surrounding worlds. Even so, they did not manage to escape this calamity. Right then, Lu Yun's spirit consciousness shifted and his gaze landed on one of the stars. "There's movement over there. Let's go take a look." Everyone from the sword world stood on the immortal boat as it transformed into a streak of light, speeding towards the shattered star. Before long, everyone arrived at the periphery of the shattered star. On the star, 2 factions were fighting intensely. Corpses were everywhere and blood chi surged. There were hundreds of thousands of cultivators on one side and most of them were heaven immortals. Among them, there were hundreds of perfected immortal experts who waved their flags and let out killing cries. On the other side, there were only around 10,000 people left. They were surrounded by the army of hundreds of thousands of cultivators and fought in blood. The difference between the 2 parties was way too great. Be it in terms of numbers or strength, there was a world of difference. There were less than 10 perfected immortals left within the group that was surrounded. Even so, the group of people were fearless and protected each other. They fought with their last bit of strength and finally fell into a pool of blood. In midair, there were 6 immortal king experts with terrifying auras standing. They were looking down at this scene coldly. If the 6 immortal king experts attacked, The Odd cultivators trapped would not be able to last more than a breath. Their gazes were cold and filled with mockery and cruelty. This was a complete massacre. Among the trapped cultivators, a perfected immortal was covered in injuries. His face was pale and his aura was weak, he could no longer fight. However, his eyes were still widened and he had an unyielding expression. He hugged the banner in his arms tightly and raised it high. The patterns on the flag corresponded to the 7 stars in the starry skies. There were only about 10,000 of the hundreds of millions of cultivators and living beings in the 7 stars sword world left, and the number was decreasing continuously. In the faction slaughtering the cultivators of the 7 stars sword world, the picture on their flags was rather strange and terrifying. It was a gigantic eye that seemed to be staring at everyone from the sword world. They are from the heavenly eye world. Feng Shu frowned with a grim expression. Su Zimo had long noticed that although the group of cultivators looked similar to humans, a crack appeared in their brows when they executed their dharmic dows. It was the heavenly eye race that he had come into contact with in Tianhuang mainland. Bai Tianxing said in a deep voice, "The immortal king in the lead should be King Cold Eye of the heavenly eye world. He's powerful and can't be underestimated. Save them," Lu Yun said, and was about to charge into the battlefield with the immortal boat. However, Yulan stopped him and said in a low voice, "The heavenly eye race is also a super large world. If we attack rashly, we'll probably add another powerful enemy to the sword world. The 7 stars sword world is only on good terms with the sword world but is not a subsidiary of it. There's no need for us to get involved." Lu Yun looked at the purgatory-like scene around him and the group of 7 stars sword world cultivators who were still resisting desperately on the star. Grief and indignation filled his heart as he asked, "Does it mean that the heavenly eye world can slaughter living beings wantonly and do whatever they want just because they're a super large world? Are we going to leave the 7 stars sword world in the lurch just because they are not a subsidiary of ours? Are we going to turn a blind eye to everything today just because we're afraid of making enemies for the sword world?" Yu Lan was speechless in the face of Lu Yun's questions. Feng Shu said in a low voice, "It would have been fine if we had arrived earlier. But now, so many people have died in the 7 stars sword world and there are only more than 10,000 of them left. It does seem a little rash for us to be enemies with the heavenly eye world just for the odd people." Lu Yun turned around and stared fixedly at Feng Shu, asking slowly, "So the remaining odd cultivators of the 7 stars sword world aren't considered humans? They deserve to die." Bai Tianxing wanted to say something but hesitated. He knew that it was not that peak masters Yu Lan and Feng Shu did not want to save them. They merely weighed the pros and cons and said those words from the perspective of the sword world. However, those words did seem a little cold and unreasonable. Suddenly, Lu Yun looked at Su Zimo with anticipation in his eyes. "Brother Su, what do you think?" There were 5 peak masters present. If one of them remained silent and 3 of them objected, it would be inappropriate for Lu Yun to appear alone even if he wanted to save them. Su Zimo said, "If cultivators of our generation have to be overcautious even when saving people, there's no need for us to cultivate the sword Dao in the future." "That's right." Lu Yun perked up when he heard that. Yu Lan and Feng Shu sighed gently with a hint of shame. The perfected immortals of the various sword peaks, such as Wang Dong and Gong Suanyu, could not hold it in any longer. They were not like the 2 peak masters who had too many reservations. They were young and hot-blooded and cultivated the sword Dao, upholding justice in their hearts. When they saw injustice, they should stand out. "Go." Yu Lan made a decision quickly as well. After the brief disagreement, the 5 peak masters quickly reached an agreement and sped towards the battlefield. In the blink of an eye, everyone from the sword world descended. "Stop." Lu Yun released the powerful might of the Grotto Heaven realm and enveloped the entire battlefield instantly. Most of the people fighting on the battlefield were heaven immortals and perfected immortals. They could not defend against the might of an immortal king's spirit consciousness and stopped one after another. The originally tragic battle also paused for a moment. However, before long, another immortal king's spirit consciousness surged over and resisted Lu Yun's spirit consciousness. The pressure on the cultivators on the battlefield decreased significantly. It was the leader of the 6 immortal kings who attacked and resolved Lu Yun's spirit consciousness pressure. Everyone from the heavenly eye race had long gone berserk from their killing spree. How could they stop so easily? The moment everyone from the heavenly eye race regained their freedom and saw that their immortal king experts were holding down the fort, they had no reservations and charged into the crowd of the 7 Stars Sword World to massacre once more. Furthermore, everyone from the heavenly eye race seemed to have guessed that something might happen later on and attacked even more ferociously, wanting to kill the remaining 7 Stars Sword World cultivators as quickly as possible. There were not many 7 Stars Sword World cultivators to begin with, and they were decreasing at every moment. Now, there were only a few thousand left. Lu Yun's expression darkened. As an immortal king expert, he naturally could not enter the battlefield and bully the weak by attacking the perfected immortals and heaven immortals of the heavenly eye race. Lu Yun took a deep breath and cupped his fists towards the 6 immortal kings of the heavenly eye world in midair. Fellow Taoists of the heavenly eye world, the 7 Stars Sword World is almost destroyed and hundreds of millions of living beings have died. I hope everyone can stop and not kill them all. He attempted to reason with the experts of the heavenly eye world. It would naturally be best if they could avoid a direct conflict with the heavenly eye world. So, it's the Peak Master of Carnage Sword Peak. The leader of the heavenly eye world, whose Dao title was Cold Eye, looked towards the group of people from the Sword World before raising his brows slightly. As far as I know, the 7 Stars Sword World has nothing to do with the Sword World. Everyone, it's best if you don't meddle in the business of others lest you attract trouble. Chapter 2777, Chapter 2777, Myriad Sword Formation. Chapter 2777, Myriad Sword Formation. In reality, King Cold Eye and the other 5 immortal king experts of the heavenly eye world had long noticed everyone from the Sword World. However, King Cold Eye was fearless and did not care. Even if the group from the Sword World wanted to stop this, they could not. There were only 4 immortal king experts in the group from the Sword World. The remaining 10 were only perfected immortals. Most of the battlefield below was filled with heaven immortals and perfected immortals fighting. If the 4 immortal king experts of the Sword World wanted to save them, it was not appropriate for them to attack personally. How could the remaining 10 perfected immortals defend against the hundreds of thousands of troops that consisted of hundreds of perfected immortals of the heavenly eye world? Furthermore, even if the 4 peak masters of the Sword World were determined to attack, the 6 immortal kings could still fight them. As long as they delayed for a moment, the remaining thousands of people of the 7 Stars Sword World would be drowned by the hundreds of thousands of heavenly eye race troop. Even if Lu Yun and the others were determined to save them and sent a message to the Sword World for reinforcements, that would delay things even further and they had no time at all. King Cold Eye was so unyielding because he had taken everything into account in his calculations. Yu Lan said in a deep voice, "King Cold Eye, I don't know what deep feud you guys have with the 7 Stars Sword World, but no matter what, there's no need to kill them all. There's no need to do such an inhumane thing like complete extermination." Bai Tianxing added, "That's right. Even if it's an eye for an eye, it's impossible that every single person from the 7 Stars Sword World offended you guys, right?" King Cold Eye sneered and the blood mark on his glabella seemed to be expanding and cracking, emitting a chill as he said slowly, "South Valley was the one who wanted to protect his disciple. Furthermore, he even dared to deceive me. He can't blame me for starting a massacre. Since he dares to challenge me, I'll make him pay the price and let his 7 Stars Sword World die with him." King South Valley was the world lord of the 7 Stars Sword World. In the Trichiliachasm, the situation was different in every world. Some worlds had world lords, while others were governed by many emperors. The latter was the case for the Sword World. There were also those like the Heavenly World where its territory was split by the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend Daos. As such, there was no actual world lord. Lu Yun was infuriated when he heard that. Killing intent flashed in his eyes as he shouted, "You want to vent your anger on the entire 7 Stars Sword World and slaughter hundreds of millions of living beings just because of King South Valley and his disciple? King Cold Eye, aren't you being way too domineering and cruel?" King Cold Eye had a fearless expression and did not back down at all. He said coldly, That's how the Heavenly Eye race does things. What can you do to me? Another king of the Heavenly Eye race sneered, do you think you can save him with just a dozen of you? Fufu, I advise all of you to mind your own business and not get yourself into trouble, or it'll be too late for regret. Another king of the Heavenly Eye race chuckled as well. Right then, two figures on the Immortal boat sped towards the battlefield almost at the same time. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had already charged into the battlefield. One of them wielded a sword, and her figure was ethereal in the cold sword light. She was graceful like a serpent. It was Lin Xuanzhen. Lin Xuanzhen wielded an immortal sword, and no one could withstand its sharpness wherever she went. As blood spewed, Heavenly Eye perfected spirits fell from midair one after another and died. In the blink of an eye, Lin Xuanzhen killed 4 peak Heavenly Eye perfected spirit. Another figure descended in the middle of the 7 Stars Sword World cultivators and extended his fair palm, shattering the head of a Heavenly Eye perfected spirit, saving the perfected Immortal carrying the flag of the 7 Stars Sword World. The figure had green robes and black hair. He was none other than the 9th Peak Master, Su Zimo. The flag-carrying perfected Immortal of the 7 Stars Sword World was called Meng Hao. He had once followed the Immortal King of the 7 Stars Sword World to Sword Burial Peak with a congratulatory gift, and Su Zimo had some impression of this person. Right now, Meng Hao was covered in injuries. His aura was weak and he was exhausted. He could not hold on any longer and could only persevere with a tenacious and unyielding will. He carried the blood-soaked flag on his shoulder and leaned against it. It was unknown if he was carrying the flag or if the flag was supporting his broken body. A Heavenly Eye perfected spirit targeted Meng Hao and broke through the defense line to charge to the latter. When he arrived, Meng Hao could not defend at all. Su Zimo was unwilling to see him die here and saved him. Sword World, it's you. Meng Hao's bloodshot eyes seemed to have recognized Su Zimo as he murmured softly. Immediately after, he relaxed and could no longer hold on, fainting on the spot. Su Zimo supported him with one hand and placed him gently on the ground. He held the flag of the 7 Stars Sword World with the other, letting the blood-soaked flag flutter on the battlefield. In reality, Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others on the Immortal boat could not stand it any longer. However, the Immortal King experts of both sides were still in a stalemate. Even if they wanted to attack, they were afraid and did not dare to act rashly. Now that Su Zimo and Lin Xuanzhen had charged into the battlefield, Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others felt their blood boil and charged forward without any reservation. Given the current situation, it was indeed not appropriate for Lu Yun, Yu Lan, and the other 2 peak masters to attack as Immortal King experts. Once a huge battle broke out between Immortal King experts, it was very easy for the situation to spiral out of control and even cause a war between worlds. The Sword World and the Heavenly Eye World were both super large worlds. As such, Lu Yun and the other 3 peak masters were extremely cautious. The best solution was for Lin Xuanzhen and the other perfected immortals to save the cultivators of the 7 Stars Sword World. Fufu. When King Cold Eye saw Su Zimo and the others attack, he could not help but scoff. You're overestimating yourselves. Is that so? Lu Yun, Yu Lan, and the others sneered when they heard that. They had roughly scanned the battlefield earlier on. Although there were hundreds of perfected spirit experts on the side of the Heavenly Eye race, they did not discover any top-notch monster incarnates. The strongest among them was roughly on par with Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others and could not threaten Lin Xuanzhen at all. Apart from Su Zimo and Beiming Shuai of the 9th Sword Peak who had negligible combat strength, the other 8 people on the Sword World side were the number 1 perfected immortals of the 8 Sword Peak. Even if the 8 of them fought individually, they could dominate the hundreds of thousands of Heavenly Eye race troops. And now, in order to save the remaining cultivators of the 7 Stars Sword World, the 8 of them formed a sword formation that was both offensive and defensive with Lin Xuanzhen as the leader. This sword formation was a simplified version of the myriad sword formation around the Sword World. The 8 of them represented the 8 Sword Peaks. Although it was a simplified version, the 8 of them were all top-notch perfected immortal experts. They had long memorized the myriad sword formation and had a tacit understanding, allowing them to unleash the might of the sword formation to its limit. The sound of the sword reverberated endlessly. A myriad of sword chi tore through the void and intersected in the world. The sword chi soared into the skies with a sharp edge and formed an impenetrable sword net, as though it could mince everything. Lin Xuanzhen, Wang Dong and the others formed a sword formation and protected Su Zimo, Bei Ming Shui and the thousands of cultivators of the Seven Stars Sword World in the middle. They defended against the attacks of the hundreds of perfected spirits and hundreds of thousands of Heavenly Eye troop. Not only that, under the myriad sword formation formed by the 8 of them, many Heavenly Eye perfected spirits died on the spot continuously. Any living being that entered the myriad sword formation would be minced into a blood mist. Chapter 2778, Chapter 2778, Threat. Chapter 2778, Threat. On the battlefield, hundreds of thousands of Heavenly Eye troops gathered. The ground was densely packed and they covered the sun in the skies, surrounding the thousands of sword cultivators. They charged continuously with violent attacks. The blood marks on the glabella of the living beings of the Heavenly Eye race split apart one after another like a third eye and burst forth with all sorts of power. The physique and bloodline of the Heavenly Eye race were similar to humans. However, they were born with a third eye on their glabella, the Heavenly Eye. It was this Heavenly Eye that transformed the living beings of this race completely and allowed them to be ranked at the top of the 10,000 races. Typically speaking, the Heavenly Eye on his glabella was also where the strongest power of the living beings of the Heavenly Eye race gathered. However, no matter how the Heavenly Eye army charged, they could not break the myriad sword formation formed by the 8 top perfected immortals of the sword world. The battle was intense and blood mist filled the air, causing sand and rocks to fly. The Heavenly Eye race army pounced over several times but they could not override the sharpness of the myriad sword formation. Before long, thousands of corpses of Heavenly Eye race beings appeared on the battlefield. The deaths of thousands of clansmen were nothing to the hundreds of thousands of troops. However, that scene was a huge shock to countless living beings of the Heavenly Eye race. Among the thousands of Heavenly Eye clansmen who died, there were nearly 100 Heavenly Eye perfected spirit. When they encircled the Seven Stars Sword World this time round to massacre hundreds of millions of living beings, less than 10 Heavenly Eye perfected spirits died. To think that the situation would change so drastically with the addition of these 10 cultivators from the Sword World into the battlefield. The remaining Heavenly Eye perfected spirits had wary expressions and attacked cautiously, not daring to advance rashly. Apart from the Heavenly Eye perfected spirit that Su Zimo first killed when he descended, he no longer had much chance to attack thereafter. It was the same for Bei Ming Shui. The moment Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu and the others joined the battlefield, they joined forces with Lin Xuanzhen to form the myriad sword formation. He and Bei Ming Shui along with the surviving sword cultivators of the Seven Stars Sword World were protected in the safest central area of the formation. The 8 of them joined forces in an extremely tacit manner and the sword formation they condensed was impenetrable. The Carnage Sword Dao, the 5 Elements Sword Dao, the Extreme Sword Dao, the Sever Sword Dao, the Illusory Sword Dao, the Tyrant Sword Dao, the Fiend Sword Dao and the Zen Sword Dao. Lin Xuanzhen and the other 7 top-tier perfected immortals made use of the myriad sword formation to unleash the 8 sword Daos to their limits. Sword chi and sword intent surged with a resplendent brilliance. It was difficult for the Heavenly Eye army to continue charging in. Even if Su Zimo wanted to charge out, there was no good opportunity. He could break the sword formation before charging out, but there was no need for that. If the 8 of them were to open up the sword formation to release him, there would definitely be an opening in the sword formation. That move might backfire during this intense battle. On the contrary, the Heavenly Eye race might be able to destroy the sword formation. When Su Zimo saw that the myriad sword formation formed by Lin Xuanzhen and the others had already blocked hundreds of thousands of living beings of the Heavenly Eye race and that there was no danger, he did not rush to step in. Actually, as the peak master of Sword Burial Peak, he naturally cultivated this myriad sword formation as well. However, Lin Xuanzhen and the other 7 had practiced the sword formation together for many years and had a tacit understanding. After joining the battlefield, they formed the sword formation immediately and did not give him a chance to join. If he were to join in now, The sword formation would have to pause momentarily and there would naturally be openings as well. Su Zimo and Beiming Shui weaved through the crowd of the Seven Stars Sword World and placed many spirit pills in the hands of the sword cultivators, trying their best to save them. In midair, Lu Yun, Yu Lan, and the others had calm expressions and were not surprised by this scene. Not far away, the expressions of King Cold Eye and the other kings of the Heavenly Eye race darkened gradually. The scene before them had indeed exceeded their expectations. Under normal circumstances, given the methods of the Heavenly Eye race, they would have an obvious advantage against most living beings of the same cultivation realm. Furthermore, the Heavenly Eye race still had the advantage in numbers. This was simply a crushing situation. Among the 10 perfected immortals of the Sword World, there were even 2 perfected immortals at the Convergence and Celestial Being realms respectively. How much of an impact could they have? However, King Cold Eye did not expect that among the 10 perfected immortals they encountered, apart from Su Zimo and Beiming Shui who did not attack much, the remaining 8 were paragons among perfected immortal. Among them, Lin Xuanzhen was the number 1 perfected immortal of the Sword World. Of course, the Heavenly Eye world had top perfected spirits as well. However, the battle to destroy the Seven Stars Sword World was already coming to an end and their top Heavenly Eye perfected spirit who was here previously had long left. If that person was here, he would definitely be able to break the sword formation formed by the 8 perfected immortals of the Sword World. King Cold Eye looked at the battlefield with a dark expression and remained silent. The current situation was gradually becoming clearer. If he did not give the order to stop, more and more Heavenly Eye race beings would die here. Stop! Suddenly, King Cold Eye let out a long roar. The massive Heavenly Eye army with hundreds of thousands of troops felt relived and retreated one after another. They escaped the battlefield, afraid that they would be sucked into the terrifying sword formation. King Cold Eye clenched his fists behind his back and turned slowly to look at Lu Yun and the others not far away, saying hatefully, "These few perfected immortals of your sword world are truly capable. If I'm not wrong, these 8 should be the strongest perfected immortals of your sword world." Lu Yun replied indifferently, "TVE warned you before. You only have yourself to blame for your lack of foresight." Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, King Cold Eye burst into laughter. His gaze was cold and the Heavenly Eye on his glabella had already opened, emitting a bone-chilling coldness. His 3 eyes stared at Lu Yun and the others at the same time. He nodded and said slowly, all right, I'll remember these people." Lu Yun's expression turned cold and his body emitted a terrifying killing intent as well. He glared at King Cold Eye and said, "King Cold Eye, I'm warning you. You're a peak king. It's best if you don't harbor any designs on them." The major worlds, especially the super large worlds, would tacitly agree to an unspoken rule. Generally speaking, experts of the major worlds would not attack cultivators of lower cultivation realms of the other worlds. That was because such actions were way too dangerous and could easily go out of control. If King Cold Eye disregarded his status and attacked Lin Xuanzhen, who was at the perfected 1 realm, the emperors of the Sword World would have a reason to attack him. At that time, the emperors of the Heavenly Eye world would not sit idly by. If the situation continued to escalate, it would turn into a war between emperors or even a war between the world. If it was a battle between people of the same cultivation realm, even if one side suffered heavy losses and was resentful, there was no excuse. They could only blame themselves for being inferior. When King Cold Eye heard that, he sneered, "Don't worry, there's no need for me to attack those sword cultivators of yours personally. Do you guys think that there's no powerful perfected spirits on the side of my Heavenly Eye world?" When they heard that, Lu Yun, Yu Lan and the other peak masters seemed to have thought of something and frowned at the same time. King Cold Eye continued, "If I'm not wrong, the 4 of you should be bringing these 10 perfected immortals to the blessed heaven world, right?" Lu Yun and the others remained calm, but their hearts sank. They had only brought 10 perfected immortals with them. Furthermore, 8 of them were top perfected immortals. The greatest possibility was that they were heading to the blessed heaven world. This matter could not be hidden from King Cold Eye at all. King Cold Eye grinned. "It's fine even if you don't reply, let's wait and see. I'll remember today's debt for the time being." However, Before I leave, I have something to say to you guys. The blood of the heavenly eye race shall not be spilled in vain." With that said, King Cold Eye gave the order and left the Seven Stars Sword world with hundreds of thousands of heavenly eye troops. Before long, he disappeared into the vast sea of stars. Chapter 2779, Chapter 2779, The Cause of the Destruction of the World. Chapter 2779, The Cause of the Destruction of the World. Although the Heavenly Eye army had left, there was no salvation for the Seven Stars Sword world. There were only a few thousand cultivator disciples left in the Seven Stars Sword world, and there were no immortal king experts among them. Only 7 perfected immortals survived. Under Su Zimo's treatment, Meng Hao had already woken up and his injuries were gradually improving with a hint of rosiness on his face. "Thank you for saving us, seniors of the Sword world." When Meng Hao and the others woke up, they bowed to Su Zimo and the others immediately. However, most of the surviving cultivators had yet to recover. They looked at the corpses around them with listless eyes and numb expressions. This was a huge blow to them. Su Zimo looked at Meng Hao and asked, "What happened? Why did the heavenly eye race come?" Previously, King Cold Eye had mentioned it briefly, but he did not elaborate. No one in the Sword world knew the reason for this calamity. Meng Hao was silent for a moment before saying slowly, "Senior brother Li Xian was chased by a heavenly eye perfected spirit in the evil fiend battlefield. He was forced to counterattack and blinded the heavenly eye perfected spirit. Under normal circumstances, after cultivating to the perfected immortal realm, one could recover using their dharmic powers even if their bodies were shattered. However, it was different for the heavenly eye. The heavenly eye was the strongest part of the heavenly eye race. Once it was injured through divine powers, it was difficult to recover." Gong Suanyu harumphed coldly. He failed to kill his target, so he could only blame his lack of skills that his heavenly eye was blinded. "If it was me, I would have killed him rather than just blinding him." Meng Hao glanced at Gong Suanyu and opened his mouth slightly. He wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, he merely sighed softly. As a perfected immortal of the Sword world, Gong Suanyu naturally had the backing to be able to say that. As for senior brother Li Xian, he was only a perfected immortal of the Seven Stars Sword world. How could he dare to offend a living being of the heavenly eye race? Even when he blinded the heavenly eye perfected spirit, it was because he had no other choice. Lu Yun frowned. Fights in the evil fiend battlefield are between perfected spirits of the same cultivation realm. Even if they die within, they can't blame others, let alone being injured. The heavenly eye world led an army to slaughter a world of living beings just because a single heavenly eye perfected spirit was blinded. Meng Hao said, that heavenly eye perfected spirit was the youngest son of King Cold Eye. That explains everything. Yu Lan and the others exchanged glances and murmured softly. Meng Hao continued, "Senior brother Li Xian knew that he had caused a huge calamity and returned to the Seven Stars Sword world immediately to report this matter to Master. At the same time, King Cold Eye sent a letter to Master asking him to hand over senior brother Li Xian. The Master Meng Hao was referring to was the World Lord of the Seven Stars Sword world, King South Valley. Master knows that senior brother Li Xian is not to blame for this, but he also knows that King Cold Eye will definitely not let the matter rest. Therefore, he arranged for senior brother Li Xian to escape secretly and sent a message to the major worlds for help." Lu Yun, Yu Lan, and the others exchanged glances and nodded to themselves. King South Valley lived up to his reputation as a sword cultivator and was indeed responsible as a world lord. He did his best to protect his disciple instead of selling out the latter. If they were in his shoes, they would not be able to think of a better solution either. At that point, Meng Hao stopped. As though he had thought of something, his body trembled slightly and he panted heavily, as though he was about to suffocate. Su Zimo chanted a few Buddhist proclamations softly, helping Meng Hao's terrified mind to gradually calm down. Meng Hao took a deep breath and continued, "To think that King Cold Eye would have arrived here long ago and sealed the Seven Stars Sword world. Not only did senior brother Li Xian die, Master's message could not be sent either." This action infuriated King Cold Eye. He sealed the 7 Stars Sword World and wanted to kill half of the living beings here as punishment. At that point, Meng Hao could not continue. The remaining sword cultivators of the 7 Stars Sword World teared up in silence as well. Lu Yun and the others sighed with conflicted expressions. King South Valley was not even willing to hand over a single disciple. There was no way he would allow half of the living beings of the 7 Stars Sword World to be killed. Cultivators of the 7 Stars Sword World cultivated the Sword Dao and would rather break than bend. They would definitely not wait for death. He would definitely have led his sword cultivators to resist and fight to the death. Even though there were only a few thousand people left in the end, Meng Hao and the others did not submit and fought against the living beings of the Heavenly Eye race with their last bit of strength. In the eyes of King Cold Eye, living beings of a lesser world like the 7 Stars Sword World were ants. How dare they deceive and resist him? In his rage, he ordered the destruction of the entire world. Even after destroying an entire world and slaughtering hundreds of millions of living beings, in the eyes of King Cold Eye and the others, they had merely stomped on some ants and they could not take it to heart. Yu Lan sighed softly. King South Valley has always been known as a hero and was benevolent. To think that he would encounter such a calamity. Sigh. Lu Yun said coldly, King Cold Eye is way too cruel. He slaughtered a world's living beings just because his youngest son's skills were inferior, resulting in the blinding of his heavenly eye. Bai Tianxing said, King Cold Eye's actions are also equivalent to sending a strong signal to the other worlds. His letting the other worlds feel fear towards the Heavenly Eye world, to warn the others not to provoke them easily. Yu Lan said, from what I know, there's a perfected spirit in the Heavenly Eye world who was born with the yin-yang eyes. He even comprehended a peerless divine power as well and has terrifying combat strength. He's probably in the top 5 of all the perfected spirits of the 10,000 races in the upper world. King Cold Eye has already guessed that we're heading to the Blessed Heaven world. If we encounter the Heavenly Eye race in the Blessed Heaven world, there will probably be additional trouble. Lu Yun had a grim expression. The Heavenly Eye world has more than one perfected spirit in this generation who comprehended a peerless divine power. Bai Tianxing said, the Heavenly Eye of the Heavenly Eye race allows their comprehension of divine powers to far surpass that of other races. In every generation, the Heavenly Eye race will at least give birth to a perfected spirit who has comprehended a peerless divine power. Are you guys implying that we should head back now? Feng Shu frowned. We're already here. We're less than 3 days away from the Blessed Heaven world. Lu Yun, Yu Lan, and Bai Tianxing fell silent and hesitated. Feng Shu said, furthermore, we're heading to the Blessed Heaven world this time round for the Venus Black Gold Stone. If we miss it, we don't know when we'll come across it again. Yu Lan said, there's nothing to worry about since fighting is prohibited in the Blessed Heaven world. However, if we want to exchange for the Venus Black Gold Stone, Xuanzhen and the others have to enter the Evil Fiend battlefield. Yu Lan looked at Lin Xuanzhen, Wang Dong and the others with worried expressions. Lin Xuanzhen said indifferently, Master, don't worry. If we encounter any danger in the Evil Fiend battlefield, we'll leave immediately. That's right. With the Blessed Heaven World badge, we can leave at any moment and there won't be any danger. Wang Dong added. Yu Lan pondered for a moment before nodding. All right. Since we're already here, we should take a look at the Blessed Heaven world. It's best if we can exchange for the Venus Black Gold Stone. If we can't, let's not force it either. Chapter 2780, Chapter 2780, A Way Out. Chapter 2780, A Way Out. Feng Shu looked at the remaining thousands of sword cultivators of the 7 Stars Sword World and asked via voice transmission with his spirit consciousness, what about them? If everyone from the Sword World left directly, there was a high chance that the Heavenly Eye army would return. Furthermore, the remaining cultivators of the 7 Stars Sword World were severely injured and could not protect themselves at all. Without the protection of the 7 Stars Sword World, even if the Heavenly Eye army did not return, these sword cultivators would easily encounter other calamities. Lu Yun pondered for a moment before looking at Meng Hao and the other cultivators of the 7 Stars Sword World and asking in a deep voice, the 7 Stars Sword World has already been destroyed. I wonder what your plans are from now on? Would you be willing to join the Sword World? Meng Hao and the other perfected immortals exchanged glances and nodded after a moment of hesitation. If they were not taken in by the Sword World, they would be itinerant cultivators without identities. In the boundless starry skies, they were like rootless duckweed and could die at any moment. The boundless starry skies of the upper world were like dark forests and were filled with danger. Even if they encountered a group of bandits that were roaming everywhere, they would not be able to defend against them given their current strength. Thank you for taking us in, Senior. Meng Hao and the other sword cultivators bowed one after another. Lu Yun nodded slightly and looked at Su Zimo, who was not far away. Brother Su, what do you think about letting them join your ninth sword peak? There were not many disciples on the ninth sword peak and there were only 2 perfected immortals. Lu Yun's actions could be considered as a favor to Su Zimo. I'm fine with it, but I don't know if they're willing. Su Zimo looked at Meng Hao and the others. My ninth sword peak has just been established and its overall strength is not high. There are only 2 perfected immortals. I'm the peak master and my cultivation realm is open to you guys as well. The 7 perfected immortals who survived in the 7 stars sword world had higher cultivation realms than Su Zimo. Among them, there were 3 Paradise Void perfected immortals. Meng Hao was one of them. Meng Hao waved his hand hurriedly. Peak Master, you must be joking. We're already extremely grateful that the Sword World is willing to take us in. How can we not be willing? All right. Su Zimo nodded. In that case, from now on, you guys will be disciples of Sword Burial Peak of the Sword World. Greetings, Peak Master. Meng Hao and the others endured the pain on their bodies and bowed. Lu Yun said, that makes things easier. Since everyone is already part of the Sword World, we can head to the Blessed Heaven World together this time round. If Meng Hao and the others were to head back to the Sword World on their own, the journey would be long and he did not know what might happen. It was the safest for them to follow along. Naturally, Meng Hao and the others had no objections. Apart from Meng Hao and some others, most of the thousands of cultivators had never been to the Blessed Heaven World and were curious about it. However, everyone was severely injured. Coupled with the calamity and the fact that they had just lost their home and family, they were a little down. Su Zimo and the others set off once more, entering the spatial tunnel and heading towards the Blessed Heaven World. The Immortal boat was huge and could easily accommodate more than 1 million people. Meng Hao and the others recuperated quietly in the Immortal boat while Lu Yun, Yu Lan, and the others stood at the bow of the Immortal boat, chatting nonchalantly. Su Zimo looked at the endless starry skies outside through the spatial tunnel in silence. The encounter in the 7 stars sword world made him lament. The image of the corpses floating in the blood river in the starry skies had a huge impact on him and he could not forget it even now. Hundreds of millions of innocent living beings were wiped out just like that. To the living beings of the 10,000 races of the boundless upper world, no one cared about them at all. In fact, the destruction of the 7 stars sword world would not even cause any waves in the upper world. Chaos had already appeared in the upper world. Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight in the Emperor's tomb had once told him to escape as soon as possible, far away from the center of the upper world and the Trichilia chasm. Actually, Su Zimo had long thought of a way out. In the Fiend domain, it was difficult for Tianhuang's sect to fight against Fiend Emperor Apocalypse after his awakening. The background of Fiend Emperor Apocalypse as well as the secrets he held were unknown. Unless necessary, Su Zimo was unwilling to fight head-on. In the Pure Land of Bliss, the influence of Heavenly Lord Six Brahma, who was Emperor Bo-Zun, was increasing. There was no place for him in the 9 Firmament Immortal domain either. There would definitely be a huge battle between the 9 Firmament Immortal domain, Pure Land of Bliss and Fiend domain eventually. If he continued to stay in the heavenly world, he would be easily involved. The best way was to leave the heavenly world and head to a place far away from the center of the upper world and the starry skies where the war would be. He could just open up a pocket dimension somewhere else. At that place, there would be no difference between the living beings of the lower and upper worlds. The 10,000 races would coexist and everyone would be equal. Su Zimo wanted to create a brand new world and establish a pure land. However, The encounter of the Seven Stars Sword World made him realize how treacherous and dangerous this path was going to be. Without absolute strength and confidence, even if such a world was established, it would be easily destroyed. You're still thinking about the Seven Stars Sword World? When Lu Yun saw that Su Zimo was troubled, he walked over and asked softly. Su Zimo nodded. Lu Yun sighed softly. Actually, events like what happened to the Seven Stars Sword World aren't rare in the upper world. Some worlds that produce special resources can be looted overnight with countless lives lost in the flames of war. In some worlds, people who obtain some peerless treasure might attract a huge calamity and cause the world to be destroyed. Even super large worlds might not be spared if chaos truly arrives, let alone lesser worlds like the Seven Stars Sword World. Chaos, catastrophe? Su Zimo murmured softly as though he had understood something. Lu Yun said, "You should know that the Sword World encountered a calamity after the Zenith Heaven era." Su Zimo nodded. When he headed to the Zenith Heaven Sword Stele to comprehend the Tao, Peak Master Yu Lan of Sever Sword Peak mentioned this to him. Lu Yun said, "Fortunately, the Sword World was preserved. After a few eras, it rose again and became a super large world. From what I know, some super large worlds in the past could no longer rise after they declined. Some were even completely destroyed and disappeared in the long river of time without leaving any traces." Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. There had to be at least 10 Emperor experts for a world to be a super large world. However, not all super large worlds could defend against it and were completely destroyed. What sort of power or calamity were those? It was unknown if the destruction of those super large worlds had anything to do with the catastrophe of the Trichiliocasm or if it was due to any other reason. 5 days later, everyone from the Sword World finally arrived at their destination. Lu Yun steered the Immortal boat and broke through the spatial tunnel, descending into the starry skies once more. He pointed in a direction and said in a deep voice, "That's the blessed heaven world." Everyone looked over and did not see any world. Lu Yun steered the Immortal boat in a streak of light and continued in that direction. Before long, the Immortal boat seemed to have collided with a water screen and slowed down, causing ripples to appear on the screen. Everyone from the Sword World felt as though they had suddenly entered another world from the starry skies outside. The scene before them suddenly changed completely. Chapter 2781, Chapter 2781, Sin Grounds. Chapter 2781, Sin Grounds. The blessed heaven world did not look big and was extremely empty. What greeted everyone's eyes was a gigantic island floating in the middle of the starry skies. The most eye-catching thing was that 10 thick and gigantic chains extended from the surroundings of the island and extended continuously, spanning half the starry skies. The end of the chains disappeared into the distant darkness. It was unknown what was on the other end. Every single chain was so thick that its circumference was around the size of 10 people hugging it. They were rusty and filled with scratch marks. Lu Yun looked at the lone island in the middle of the starry skies. That's Blessed Island. It's also the only area in the blessed heaven world where foreign cultivators can step foot. What are those chains? Su Zimo asked. What's connected to the other end of the chains? Lu Yun explained, legend has it that the 10 blessed chains lead to the 10 sin grounds where many evil fiends and sin spirits are imprisoned. That area is a forbidden ground of the blessed heaven world and no one can approach it. 10 sin grounds? Evil fiends and sin spirits? Su Zimo frowned slightly and looked at the end of the 10 blessed chains in deep thought. Not only could one's gaze not penetrate the darkness on the other side, even if one's spirit consciousness extended over, it would disappear and they would not be able to detect anything. For some unknown reason, Su Zimo felt an inexplicable discomfort after arriving at the blessed heaven world. Everything around him was oppressive. After 5 days of recuperation, Meng Hao and the thousands of surviving cultivators of the Seven Stars Sword World were much better and could move around freely. Everyone walked out of the resting chamber in the Immortal boat one after another. They looked around curiously at the legendary blessed heaven world. Standing at the bow of the ship, Lu Yun looked at the many cultivators on the Immortal boat and said in a deep voice, "This is the first time most of you are here in the blessed heaven world. There are some rules that I have to tell everyone. There's a powerful restriction power in the blessed heaven world. Apart from a specific region, no conflicts are allowed elsewhere. Otherwise, one will definitely be mercilessly killed by the restriction power in the blessed heaven world. You might not be able to sense it, but in the blessed heaven world, even immortal king experts like me can't even release grotto heavens. It's said that the worlds condensed by emperor experts will be suppressed after coming to the blessed heaven world. Everyone's hearts skipped a beat when they heard that. Even emperor experts would be restricted in the blessed heaven world. Yulan added, therefore, don't take any chances. For example, don't get into conflicts here on Blessed Island. Lu Yun continued, the blessed heaven world is extremely special. No matter who you are or what race you are from, you can only stay for 10 days after entering the blessed heaven world. If you don't leave after 10 days, you will be killed by the blessed heaven world. After leaving, you can only enter the blessed heaven world 1,000 years later. Although everyone felt that this rule was a little strange, they could understand it. If not for that rule, countless living beings of the 10,000 races of the Trichiliocosm would have swarmed over and refused to leave. The entire blessed heaven world would not have been able to hold them. Suddenly, Suzimo asked, the specific area that Brother Lu mentioned earlier on is the evil fiend battlefield that you mentioned previously? On the way to the blessed heaven world, Lu Yun had mentioned the evil fiend battlefield. However, before he could explain in detail, they encountered the matter of the 7 Stars Sword world. Lu Yun nodded. That's right. You can only fight at will in the evil fiend battlefield. The entrance to the evil fiend battlefield is on Blessed Island. Apart from Lin Xuanzhen and the others, this was the first time most of the cultivators had heard of the evil fiend battlefield and they were puzzled. Lu Yun said, the evil fiend battlefield is similar to the ancient battlefield and belongs to a pocket dimension. The reason why it's called the evil fiend battlefield is because there are many evil fiends and sin spirits living inside. These evil fiends and sin spirits come from the 10 sin grounds. What exactly do the evil fiends and sin spirits refer to? Su Zimo had heard Lu Yun mention this term more than once. Lu Yun said, the evil fiends within refer to some special and powerful living beings who are cruel and inhumane, such as the Yaksha and Azura races. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Through the martial Dao Prime body, he learned that the living beings of the Ghost Dao were the legendary Yaksha race. The Ghost Dao and Medium Kiliakasm were 2 independent worlds with indestructible world barriers that could only be broken by Emperor experts. But now, the Yaksha race could appear in the Medium Kiliakasm and were known as evil fiends. The Azura race should be a unique living being nurtured from the Azura Dao. Living beings of the Ghost and Azura Daos were referred to as evil fiends in the blessed heaven world. Unsurprisingly, the nether race of the Hell Dao should be a part of the blessed heaven world's evil fiends as well. Su Zimo asked in a deep voice, what about sin spirits? Lu Yun explained, it said that in the ancient era, there were living beings of some races who were bewitched by the evil fiends. They committed heinous sins and these are their descendants. Yulan said, among these descendants of sin spirits, there are all kinds of races and there are even many human cultivators. However, you have to remember that these are sin spirits and are no different from the evil fiends. When the time comes, there's no need to show mercy. Lin Xuanzhen, Wang Dong and the others nodded. They seemed to have been to the evil fiend battlefield before and were no strangers to such things. Su Zimo frowned slightly in silence. In that case, the many evil fiends in the evil fiend battlefield should be the descendants of the Yaksha and Azura race from the ancient era. However, at the same time, another question surged in Su Zimo's heart. Since they're known as sin spirits, what sort of heinous sins did they commit back then? Su Zimo suddenly asked. Bai Tianxing said, those sin spirits were once bewitched by the evil fiends and became enemies with the living beings of the 10,000 races. They aided the tyrants and committed heinous sins. Su Zimo asked again, but those were matters of the ancient era. The evil fiends and sin spirits right now are only their descendants. What do they have to do with the matters of the ancient era? Yulan said, Brother Su, you might not know this, but those evil fiends are ferocious by nature and are extremely hostile to living beings of the upper world. No matter how many generations it has been, their natures can't be changed. Su Zimo had a deep understanding of that. In the Hell world, when the living beings of Hell heard that he was from the upper world, most of them would feel immense hostility and killing intent. What about the sin spirits within? Su Zimo asked. They were born in this generation and have been separated by countless generations. They have nothing to do with the mistakes of their ancestors in the ancient era. Why should they suffer all of this? Lu Yun, Yu Lan, and the others were stunned for a moment. Someone committed a serious crime but was already punished. However, his descendants would still have to be implicated no matter how many generations or years passed. The descendants of these people bore the mark of sin the moment they were born and had to accept punishment, unable to make a comeback for generations to come. However, what did these descendants have to do with the sins of the past? A moment later, Yu Lan said hesitantly, I believe, the blood of sin flows in the bodies of these descendants of sin spirits as well. Although that was the case, Yu Lan's tone was uncertain. Lu Yun and the other peak masters fell into deep thought as well. Gong Suanyu looked at Su Zimo and smiled. Peak master, you'll know when you enter the evil fiend battlefield. Even if you're benevolent inside, those evil fiends and sin spirits won't let us off. Each of those evil fiends and sin spirits is more ferocious and vicious than the other. In the evil fiend battlefield, there's only your survival or theirs. There's no other choice. Chapter 2782, Chapter 2782, Battle Merits. Chapter 2782, Battle Merits. Right. Su Zimo recalled something else and asked, Brother Lu once said that exchanging for the Venus Black Goldstone is related to the evil fiend battlefield. Why is that so? Lu Yun smiled and explained, there are all sorts of peerless treasures in the Blessed Pavilion. However, battle merits are required to exchange for the treasures inside. Battle merits? Su Zimo murmured softly. Lu Yun said, battle merits are similar to contribution points. You can understand them as a currency unique to the Blessed Heaven world and can only be used here. There's only one way to obtain battle merits: entering the evil fiend battlefield and killing the evil fiends and sin spirits inside. Yu Lan said at the side, most of the evil fiends and sin spirits in the evil fiend battlefield are at the perfected spirit realm and there are no grotto heaven realm experts. Xuanzhen, Wang Dong and the others killed evil fiends and sin spirits in the evil fiend battlefields and have some battle merits. However, they still need a lot more to exchange for a treasure like the Venus Black Gold Stone. Su Zimo was enlightened. It was no wonder why Lu Yun had once said that he did not need essence spirit stones or other unique treasures to exchange for the Venus Black Gold Stone in the Blessed Heaven world. In the Blessed Heaven world, battle merits were the only hard currency. As everyone conversed, the Immortal boat had already arrived above Blessed Island. Su Zimo turned back and looked at the darkness in the distance of the Blessed Heaven world with a slight frown. Indeed, there were strange things everywhere in the Blessed Heaven world. Not only were there some special rules, but they also had their own unique trading rules. From a certain perspective, the Blessed Heaven world encouraged the living beings of the 10,000 races of the upper world to enter the evil fiend battlefield to fight and obtain battle merits. The evil fiends and sin spirits were enemies with the 10,000 races? Could that have anything to do with the chaos of the Trichilia chasm? Su Zimo felt that there was a layer of fog behind this matter that prevented him from seeing the truth. Even what Lu Yun and the others said could be taken both ways. Everyone retreated from the Immortal boat and descended slowly on Blessed Island. Although Blessed Island had a ban that every living being could only stay in the Blessed Heaven world for 10 days each 1,000 years, there was still a sea of people on Blessed Island and it was extremely lively. There were way too many living beings of the 10,000 races in the Trichilia chasm and there was only a single Blessed Island. Su Zimo merely took a rough glance and saw at least 7 to 8 different races in the surroundings. Although they were in human form, their auras were extremely different from humans. Lu Yun said, you can see living beings from various worlds in the Blessed Heaven world. The dozens of people there are from the Golden Crow world. Su Zimo followed Lu Yun's gaze and saw a group of perfected spirits at the Paradise Void realm. The leader had a pale golden expression and was tall and thin. He looked cold and his gaze was as sharp as an eagle. The so-called Golden Crow world was the world ruled by the 3D Golden Crow race. The Golden Crow race was one of the primordial 9 races of Tianhuang mainland. In the upper world, the Golden Crow world was also a super large world. Su Zimo swept his gaze and saw more than 10 cultivators passing by not far away with their heads held high. Although the cultivators were in human form, Su Zimo's essence spirit contained the dragon phoenix essence spirit and he was extremely sensitive to the aura of the dragon race. He recognized the origin of the cultivators right away. They were from the dragon world. The immortal king expert in the lead of the dragon world seemed to have sensed something and looked in the direction of everyone from the sword world. In the end, his gaze landed on Su Zimo with a hint of confusion in the depths of his eyes. Thereafter, he shook his head and left with everyone from the dragon world without stopping. Lu Yun, Yu Lan, and the others led thousands of sword cultivators in the direction of the blessed pavilion. Along the way, Su Zimo saw the divine phoenixes of the parasol tree world, the god race with golden hair and blue eyes of the light world, and the tall barbarian race from the barbarian world. Su Zimo had come into contact with these living beings in Tianhuang mainland before and was rather familiar with them. However, he had never seen most other races before. Thankfully, Lu Yun introduced them to him as they advanced, broadening his horizons. For example, the giant race being he came into contact with on the Dragon Abyss Star was from the giant world, a greater world. The worlds of the 5 elements, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth worlds were all middle worlds. On the isolated island, perfected spirit paragons of the 10,000 races from various worlds were gathered. Even Lin Xuanzhen, Wang Dong, and the others no longer seemed as outstanding after arriving at Blessed Island. Right then, hundreds of women walked over from the side. All of them emitted a faint fragrance and were extremely charming with their own merits. All of the women possessed an immortal charm individually and they attracted searing gazes everywhere they passed. Even Gong Suanyu, Wang Dong, and the others stole a few glances in that direction. Those are cultivators of the flower world. Yu Lan smiled and said, "The flower world is a greater world and most of them are women. The leader is Immortal Queen Yu Lan and can be considered an expert of the Grotto Heaven realm." Immortal Queen Yu Lan had an extraordinary demeanor and was like an orchid that stood out from the crowd. When she saw Lu Yun and the others, she cupped her hands and nodded with a smile as a form of greeting. Suddenly, Immortal Queen Yu Lan's beautiful eyes shifted and landed on Su Zimo. The green-robed man with refined features looked young and his cultivation was only that of a celestial being perfected immortal. However, he walked side by side with Lu Yun and the other immortal kings. Furthermore, for some unknown reason, Immortal Queen Yu Lan had an inexplicably favorable impression of this young man she had never met before. It was as though there was something special or aura about this person that made her feel a sense of intimacy involuntarily. Was it love at first sight? Immortal Queen Yu Lan snapped out her stupor the moment that thought passed through her mind. She chided herself gently, "What's wrong with me? Why am I letting my imagination run wild?" Others did not know what was happening, they merely saw Immortal Queen Yu Lan's beautiful eyes staring at Su Zimo without blinking. There seemed to be a faint blush on her face, making her exceptionally endearing. Lu Yun and the others were stunned when they saw that. Su Zimo was the only one who could roughly guess the reason why. Immortal Queen Yu Lan's true form should be an orchid, which was why she felt a sense of familiarity with his green lotus true body. "Fellow Daoist Yu Lan, are you acquainted with Brother Su?" Lu Yun coughed lightly and probed. At that moment, Immortal Queen Yu Lan had already returned to normal. She shook her head gently and said with a smile, "I'm not. May I know how I should address this young friend?" Lu Yun introduced, "This is Su Zhu, the peak master of the 9th sword peak of our sword world." Oh! Immortal Queen Yu Lan was slightly surprised. That explains why he could stand shoulder to shoulder with you and the others, fellow Daoist Lu. In that case, I should treat him as an equal as well. Pausing for a moment, she looked at Su Zimo and smiled. "Fellow Daoist Su, if you have the chance to come to the flower world in the future, remember to look for me. I can bring you around the flower world." That was an extremely clear invitation. Bai Tianxing was envious and could not help but say, Fairy Yulan, why are you inviting Brother Su alone? What about us? We want to take a look at the flower world too. Immortal Queen Yulan smiled. Sure thing. Everyone is welcome. Useless. Yulan rolled her eyes at him. Lu Yun shook his head helplessly. How can you be so shameless as to take the initiative to approach others when they didn't even invite you? Everyone from the sword and flower worlds chuckled. The immortal kings chatted casually for a while more before bidding farewell. Before leaving, Immortal Queen Yulan took another deep look at Su Zimo before turning to leave with a hint of doubt. Chapter 2783, Chapter 2783, Blessed Heaven World Badge. Chapter 2783, Blessed Heaven World Badge. The Blessed Pavilion was in the center of Blessed Island and was also the tallest and largest building on the island. It was extremely conspicuous. Everyone from the Sword World headed towards the Blessed Pavilion and encountered at least hundreds of living beings of the 10,000 races along the way. Most cultivators and living beings from other worlds would show some respect when they encountered everyone from the Sword World. Even for some living beings from other super-large worlds, they would exchange pleasantries with Lu Yun and the others when they met. However, Su Zimo's group numbered in the thousands and naturally attracted many discussions. Why are there so many people from the Sword World? They even brought a group of Earth and Heaven Immortals with them. The clothes of those people are different from the Sword World. They seem to be from the Seven Stars Sword World. Oh, right. I heard that the Seven Stars Sword World was destroyed a few days ago. Hundreds of millions of living beings were slaughtered by the Heavenly Eye World and it was reduced to ruins. This group of people are probably the only remaining cultivators of the Seven Stars Sword World who were taken in by the Sword World. Many cultivators and living beings guessed the general situation with a few words. Before long, everyone from the Sword World arrived before the Blessed Pavilion. Lu Yun said, every perfected spirit can obtain a personal identity badge in the Blessed Pavilion. Leave a spirit consciousness imprint on the front of the badge and write your name. The back will display the points of your battle merits. Spirit consciousness imprint. Su Zimo murmured softly in deep thought. He suddenly recalled something. Back when he first arrived at the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, he was forced to participate in a hunt held by Prince Yuanzhe. At that time, Prince Yuanzhe distributed a badge to everyone and asked them to leave their spirit consciousness imprint on it. In reality, Prince Yuanzhe used that spirit consciousness imprint to monitor everyone and control the location and movements of every cultivator with their spirit consciousness imprint. As though he could tell Su Zimo's concerns, Lu Yun said, Brother Su, there's no need to worry. This Blessed Heaven World badge has been passed down through the ages and there has never been any problems. Su Zimo smiled and did not explain. In reality, even if there were any latent dangers to the Blessed Heaven World badge, such tricks could no longer threaten him. After cultivating the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra, even the sect master of the academy could not divine everything about him. With the Dharmic Tao of the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra, Su Zimo could leave his spirit consciousness imprint on it completely. However, he could erase the spirit consciousness imprint on the Blessed Heaven World badge completely with a single thought even if they were billions of miles apart. Lu Yun continued, the Blessed Heaven World badge is only useful in the Blessed Heaven World. Before leaving the Blessed Heaven World, you have to store the badge in the Blessed Pavilion. The battle merits inside will also be preserved and you can continue using it the next time you come. Pausing for a moment, Lu Yun continued, of course, if a living being dies outside, it means that his Blessed Heaven World badge will no longer have an owner and the battle merits on it will disappear as well. Wang Dong, Xuanzhen, head to the Blessed Pavilion to retrieve your badges. Those who don't have badges can also obtain them from the Blessed Pavilion. Under the lead of Lin Xuanzhen and Wang Dong, Su Zimo, Beiming Shui, Meng Hao and a few other perfected immortals who did not have the Blessed Heaven World badge entered a hall on the left of the Blessed Pavilion. The moment he entered the hall, Su Zimo's eyes lit up and tiny spots of light floated around him. Lin Xuanzhen, Wang Dong and the others released their spirit consciousnesses and a light spot flew towards them. It was their Blessed Heaven World badge. When Su Zimo released his spirit consciousness, a badge flew over as well. It was made of a special material that resembled jade but was not jade, stone but not stone. Both sides were blank. Su Zimo imprinted the words Su Zhu on one side with his spirit consciousness. Immediately after, the words battle merits appeared on the back. The back of the words battle merits was blank as well, and there were no points displayed. Bei Ming Shui, Meng Hao, and the others did the same. A moment later, everyone left the hall and returned to the entrance of the blessed pavilion. Lu Yun looked at the thousands of earth immortals and heaven immortals at the entrance of the blessed pavilion and said in a deep voice, "Let's rent a residence first. Although there's no danger in the blessed heaven world, there are many of us on this trip. We can have a base if we rent a residence." Only experts who were perfected spirits or stronger could enter the blessed pavilion. Of the 7 Stars Sword World cultivators who just joined the Sword World, many thousands of them were not qualified. Yu Lan frowned slightly. To rent a residence that can accommodate thousands of people, I'm afraid it will cost 10 battle merits each day. It's only 10 battle merits. That doesn't seem too much. Su Zimo probed. Yu Lan shook her head and explained, it's extremely difficult to obtain battle merits in the Evil Fiend battlefield. You must know, killing a Paradise Void Realm Evil Fiend or Sin Spirit is only worth 10 battle merits. Convergence Realm Evil Fiends are merely worth 1 battle merit. Convergence Realm Evil Fiends are worth 3 battle merits while Hollow Nether Realm Evil Fiends are worth 6. Meng Hao was speechless. Good lord, renting such a residence for a day means that we'll have to kill a Paradise Void Realm Evil Fiend. Yu Lan said, that's right. If we stay in the blessed heaven world for 10 days, we'll have to spend 100 battle merits for nothing. Feng Shu said, there are many people in the blessed heaven world. Renting a residence can at least prevent living beings of other worlds from spying on us. There's no need for us to hide our communication, and it will be more convenient for us to do things. Right then, Lin Xuanzhen suddenly said indifferently, Master, let's rent a residence. I'll naturally be able to get back the 100 battle merits expended. All right. When Yu Lan saw Lin Xuanzhen say that, she did not insist. Before long, everyone from the Sword World found an empty residence near the blessed pavilion. There was a groove in the shape of a badge at the entrance of the residence. Lin Xuanzhen went forward and placed her blessed heaven world badge on the groove of the door, and it matched perfectly. Immediately after, the residence shone brightly and the door opened. Among the perfected immortals of the Sword World, Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others had less than 10 battle merit points. Only Lin Xuanzhen had more than 2 battle merits on her blessed heaven world badge and could rent this residence. Su Zimo could see it clearly. Initially, there was a powerful restriction around the residence that prevented outsiders from barging in. The restriction could only be removed with the help of the battle merits in the blessed heaven world badge. After settling the thousands of earth immortals and heaven immortals in the residence, Lu Yun looked at the sky. Time is precious and there's no time to lose. I think you guys should head to the blessed pavilion now and prepare to enter the evil fiend battlefield. Everyone only had 10 days in the blessed pavilion. Right now, before everyone could obtain any battle merits, Lin Xuanzhen had already expended 100 battle merits. All right. Gong Suanyu, Wang Dong, and the others were invigorated and rubbed their fists eagerly. They could not wait any longer. The 5 peak masters along with Lin Xuanzhen, Wang Dong, Meng Hao, and the other perfected immortals left the residence and arrived before the blessed pavilion once more. The blessed pavilion can roughly be divided into 2 regions. Lu Yun said in a deep voice, there's a pagoda on the left with many unique treasures inside. The area on the right leads to the evil fiend battlefield. Feng Shu said, let's go to the treasure pagoda on the left first and see how much battle merit the Venus Black Goldstone is worth so that we can have a better idea of things. Everyone from the Sword World entered the blessed pavilion. After turning left, they arrived in front of a towering pagoda. It was the treasure pagoda of the blessed pavilion. Chapter 2784, Chapter 2784, Stone Race. Chapter 2784, Stone Race. Upon entering the treasure pagoda, Su Zimo's eyes lit up. Countless rare treasures were placed everywhere. Pills, divine weapons, universal treasures, cultivation techniques, secret skills, immortal herbs, immortal ores and beast eggs. There was practically everything available, including living or inanimate items. Everything was placed in the open on the first floor of the treasure pagoda. This was Meng Hao's first time in the treasure pagoda as well, and he could not help but exclaim. Each treasure was placed in sealed treasure chests of different sizes with different numbers engraved on them. Beside every number was a groove the size of a blessed heaven world badge. Lu Yun said in a low voice, "The numbers on it correspond to the battle merits needed to exchange for each treasure. If you want any treasure, place your blessed heaven world badge on it. If you have enough battle merits, the treasure chest will open on its own and you can take away the treasure within. Although there's no one guarding the treasure pagoda, anyone who dares to snatch or steal anything inside will be killed." Su Zimo took a casual glance and saw a well-preserved Dao fruit in a treasure chest not far away. Under normal circumstances, most perfected spirits would cultivate Dao fruits in their bodies. It was just that their names were different depending on the dharmic Daos and races. However, it was not easy to obtain such a well-preserved Dao fruit. Every Dao fruit contained the dharmic Dao profundities that this living being had cultivated for his entire life. If one could digest and absorb a single Dao fruit, it would increase the cultivation of a cultivator greatly. On the treasure chest was a number 10. 10 battle merits. Su Zimo was secretly speechless. A perfectly preserved Dao fruit only required 10 battle merits. Everyone from the sword world watched as they walked down the hall of the treasure pagoda. Essence morning heaven crystal 100 battle merits. Purple blood immortal mushroom 200 battle merits. Blood transformation needle 250 battle merits. As everyone ventured deeper, the number of battle merits required for the surrounding treasures increased. Before long, Su Zimo saw a familiar treasure. Body seed. Back then, this treasure was placed in the secret ground of the pure magnificence heaven by immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight. It was extremely helpful to Su Zimo's cultivation, and it was an extremely rare and precious treasure even in the upper world. 500 battle merits were required to redeem a body seed. In the Evil Fiend battlefield, killing a Convergence Realm Evil Fiend merely earned 1 battle merit. A Paradise Void Realm Evil Fiend only gave 10 battle merits. It was not easy to obtain 500 battle merits. An hour had passed since they arrived. They had only walked through half of the hall on the first floor of the treasure pagoda, and the people of the sword world had yet to see the Venus black gold stone. Lu Yun, Yu Lan, and the others frowned. If the Venus black gold stone required too many battle merits, the pressure on Lin Xuanzhen and the others would increase as well. There was a high chance they would return empty-handed from this trip as well. Everyone advanced until they were about to reach the end of the hall on the first floor. Finally, they saw the Venus black gold stone in a treasure chest. The Venus black gold stone was only the size of a fingernail, but it cost 1,000 battle merits. Yu Lan sighed softly. 1,000 battle merits. This is the most precious treasure on the first floor of the treasure pagoda. When Su Zimo saw the troubled expressions on the faces of Lu Yun, Yu Lan, and the others, he realized that it was probably more difficult and dangerous than he had imagined to enter the Evil Fiend battlefield to obtain battle merits. 1,000 battle merits meant that they had to obtain 100 battle merits each day for the 10 days. That meant that they had to kill 10 Paradise Void perfected spirit. Su Zimo had fought the Yaksha and Azura races briefly before and knew how terrifying such living beings were. It would indeed be troublesome to deal with them in the Evil Fiend battlefield. Su Zimo pondered for a moment. If we can't accumulate enough battle merits in one go, can we wait for 1,000 years before returning to the blessed heaven world to obtain more battle merits? Of course we can. Lu Yun said, however, the Venus black gold stone might have already been exchanged for the next time you come. In addition, in order to accumulate 1,000 battle merits, you will have to kill a lot of evil fiends. The powerful evil fiends in the Evil Fiend battlefield will definitely target you. The next time you enter the Evil Fiend battlefield, the weaker evil fiends and sin spirits will have long hidden themselves. You'll be only targeted by the powerful evil fiends inside and might not have a chance to obtain much battle merits. Fengshu said, from what I know, the strongest perfected spirits throughout history have only accumulated around 5,000 battle merits. Beyond that, it's extremely difficult to continue obtaining battle merits. Lin Xuanzhen said, it's not impossible to get 1,000 battle merits in 10 days. Gong Suanyu added, Peak Masters, don't worry. We have the Blessed Heaven World badge. If we encounter any danger, we can retreat at any moment. That was another use of the Blessed Heaven World badge. As long as they carried the Blessed Heaven World badge, they could leave the evil fiend battlefield and return to the Blessed Heaven World at any moment. However, they would have to spend 10 battle merits each time. Sword Immortal Tai Lai added, that's right. Since we're already here, we have to fight in the evil fiend battlefield. Usually, they were restrained when sparring with their fellow disciples in the Sword World and had too many reservations. Now that they were in the Blessed Heaven World, there was no need for them to hold back against the evil fiends and sin spirits. They could kill to their heart's content and naturally, everyone was unwilling to return empty-handed. Lu Yun, Yu Lan and the others exchanged glances and nodded after some hesitation. Bai Tianxing said, the evil fiend battlefield is not a good place. The evil fiends and sin spirits inside are ferocious and vicious. Furthermore, they have powerful combat strength and cannot be underestimated. There are even monster incarnates who have comprehended peerless divine powers among the evil fiends and sin spirits inside. If you encounter them, don't fight them and retreat immediately. The evil fiends and sin spirits inside and comprehend peerless divine powers? Meng Hao was shocked. Of course. Lu Yun said, the strongest evil fiends and sin spirits inside are definitely not inferior to paragons and monster incarnates of the 10,000 races of the various worlds. If not for that, the evil fiends and sin spirits inside would have been killed entirely long ago. Since ancient times, there have been many paragons of the Trichiliocasm who died inside and became food for the evil fiend. In name, you're the ones who went in to kill the evil fiends and obtain battle merits. However, the evil fiends and sin spirits inside also want to kill you and obtain your cultivation resources. Yu Lan added, in addition, in the evil fiend battlefield, apart from guarding against the evil fiends and sin spirits, you have to be wary of perfected spirits of other worlds as well. There are no restrictions in the evil fiend battlefield at all and fights between perfected spirits of the 10,000 races will happen frequently. All of you have to be careful. Fengshu said, I looked around earlier on and didn't see anyone from the Heavenly Eye race or the Stone race. That's a good thing for us. Stone race. Su Zimo's expression changed. Lu Yun could tell that Su Zimo was puzzled and explained, the Stone world is also a super large world and has a bad relationship with our Sword world. There have been grudges for a long time and it's been like this for a few eras. The bloodline of the Stone race is ordinary, but their physiques are incomparably tough. Even divine weapons might not be able to injure them. The Stone race beings are very easy to recognize. Most of them are burly and tall, and their skin is grey and rough, as though they are covered in a layer of stone. It's not only in the evil fiend battlefield. If you encounter people from the Stone race elsewhere, you have to be careful as well. Su Zimo nodded and took a mental note. Chapter 2785, Chapter 2785, Battle Merits Jade Steely. Chapter 2785, Battle Merits Jade Steely. What's up there? Su Zimo pointed above him. The treasure pagoda towered into the clouds and clearly had more than one floor. Right now, everyone was only in the hall on the first floor of the treasure pagoda. Lu Yun said, the treasure pagoda is filled with all sorts of rare treasures. It's the same for the next 4 floors above. The treasures on the second floor of the treasure pagoda will require at least 1,000 battle merits and the upper limit is 2,000. Treasures on the third floor will require between 2,000 to 3,000 battle merits. That pattern goes on until the 5th floor. The higher the floors, the higher the number of battle merits required for the treasures. What about those after the 5th floor? Meng Hao could not help but ask. Yu Lan said, The treasures above the 5th floor require 5,000 battle merits at the very least. However, as far as I know, those floors have not been opened for a long time. Bai Tianxing interrupted from the side. It's said that there are even rarer and more precious treasures above the 10th floor, even treasures such as taboo. Mystic classics. Ah! Everyone from the sword world exclaimed softly. Lu Yun shook his head gently. Those are just rumors. Even if they do exist, the battle merits required are unimaginable. It's just that it's impossible to obtain them by fighting in Evil Fiend battlefield alone. In reality, that was indeed the case. The upper limit of perfected spirits allowed in the Evil Fiend battlefield was 10 for each world. It was difficult to estimate the number of evil fiends and sin spirits in the Evil Fiend battlefield. Once they stayed in the Evil Fiend battlefield for too long a period of time, they would definitely be targeted and fall into a bitter and dangerous situation. At that time, they would be extremely lucky to escape alive, let alone obtain battle merits. Everyone walked around the hall on the 1st floor of the treasure pagoda before leaving. 1,000 battle merits were required for this trip. That was a huge challenge for Lin Xuanzhen and the others. Time was precious and there was no need for everyone to stay in the treasure pagoda any longer. After leaving the treasure pagoda, everyone did not stop and headed in the direction of the Evil Fiend battlefield. On the way, Lin Xuanzhen suddenly said, I'll split the battle merits in my Blessed Heaven World badge with you guys first. Lu Yun nodded. Everyone will get 10 battle merits. That way, if you encounter any danger inside, you can leave immediately. Not only were the Blessed Heaven World badges used to record battle merits, they were also equivalent to a teleportation method that allowed them to leave the Evil Fiend battlefield at any time. However, they had to expend 10 battle merits each time they wanted to teleport out of the Evil Fiend battlefield using the Blessed Heaven World badge. Although Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others had been to the Blessed Heaven World before, they had less than 10 battle merits on their badges. As for Su Zimo and Beiming Shui's Blessed Heaven World badges, they did not have any battle merits at all. Wang Dong and the others took out their Blessed Heaven World badges. Lin Xuanzhen touched her badge slightly with the Blessed Heaven World badges of Wang Dong and the others and willed. The battle merits on the Blessed Heaven World badges of Wang Dong and the others instantly increased to 10 points. When Su Zimo saw that, he seemed to have thought of something and suddenly frowned. Lu Yun noticed the change in Su Zimo's expression and said, I believe you've already guessed it, Brother Su. Su Zimo nodded slightly. The battle merits on the Blessed Heaven World badge can be transferred at will. This means that in the Evil Fiend battlefield, the perfected spirits of the various worlds might fight for the battle merit. Exactly. Lu Yun said, therefore, apart from guarding against the evil fiends and sin spirits in the Evil Fiend battlefield, you have to be wary of experts from other worlds as well. Feng Shu said, in the Evil Fiend battlefield, perfected spirits of the major worlds often fight one another. However, ordinary perfected spirits won't dare to provoke our sword world. Bai Tianxing said, if Lin Xuanzhen and the others join forces to form the myriad sword formation, they can even fight against a supreme perfected spirit. The entrance to the Evil Fiend battlefield was on a huge open-air square in the Blessed Pavilion. Before long, everyone from the sword world arrived at the Blessed Heaven World Square. There were 10 gigantic water curtains erected around the square, clearly showing the terrains and environments of another world. Lu Yun said, the Evil Fiend battlefield can be roughly divided into 10 regions. These 10 gigantic screens represent the complete Evil Fiend battlefield. Stare at one of the gigantic screens and concentrate. When you extend your spirit consciousness into it, you'll be able to see the exact situation inside. Su Zimo released his spirit consciousness and touched one of the gigantic screens. Indeed, it was as though he had already entered the Evil Fiend battlefield. Initially, he was still in the firmaments. However, his vision narrowed continuously and everything before him seemed to be magnified. In fact, he could even clearly see the patterns on a fallen leaf in the Evil Fiend battlefield. It was a strange feeling. Su Zimo retracted his spirit consciousness and everything returned to normal. Living beings of the 10,000 races were gathered in the Blessed Heaven World Square. There was a huge teleportation formation beneath every gigantic screen. 10 cultivators from the flying heaven world stepped onto a teleportation formation and disappeared from the blessed heaven world square with a series of flashes. The 10 of them should have already entered the evil fiend battlefield. Lu Yun explained, there are 10 teleportation entrances to the evil fiend battlefield and the landing location is random. Therefore, the first thing you guys do after entering the evil fiend battlefield is to observe your surroundings and be on guard. If they were unlucky and landed in a place where the evil fiends were gathered or encountered a supreme perfected spirit, everyone would probably have to retreat in advance. Su Zimo's gaze shifted and he saw a jade stele erected in the middle of the blessed heaven world square with names of cultivators listed on it. That's the battle merits jade stele and they rank perfected spirits based on their battle merits. There are 100 names in total and almost all the names on it are supreme perfected spirit. Lu Yun said, it's no exaggeration to say that these 100 of them are the strongest perfected spirits in the trichiliocosm. In the heavenly world, there were supreme perfected immortals and supreme perfected fiends. However, in the upper world, only those who comprehended peerless divine powers were qualified to be called supreme perfected spirit. In the entire trichiliocosm, there were countless living beings of the 10,000 races who had cultivated to the perfected spirit realm. However, there were less than 100 of them who could be called supreme perfected spirits. Even including some paragons who had comprehended peerless divine powers but did not leave their names on the battle merits jade stele, there were probably less than 200 of them in total. Su Zimo's gaze landed on the first row of the battle merits jade stele. Xia Yin, Heavenly Eye World. This Heavenly Eye race being named Xia Yin was rank 1 on the battle merits jade stele. Yu Lan said, that person is the one who was born with the yin-yang eyes. He's extremely ferocious among the perfected spirits of the trichiliocosm. Although the ranking on the battle merits jade stele might not represent the ranking of actual combat strength, there won't be much of a difference. Su Zimo took a rough glance. Among the 100 spots on the battle merits jade stele, there were paragons from the Dragon World, Stone World, Great Wilderness, Parasol Tree World, Tomb World, Light World, Witch World, Blood World and Golden Crow World. Most of them came from super large worlds. The Heavenly Eye World alone had 2 people. However, he did not see anyone familiar on the battle merits jade stele. Chess Immortal Jun Yu belonged to the Heavenly World and had already comprehended peerless divine powers. She could be considered a supreme perfected spirit. However, her name was not on the battle merits jade stele. Su Zimo wondered if it was because she had yet to come to the blessed heaven world or because she did not have enough battle merits. Chapter 2786, Chapter 2786, 10 Great Evil Fiends. Chapter 2786, 10 Great Evil Fiends. Do you have any more questions? Lu Yun looked at Lin Xuanzhen, Su Zimo and the others. Actually, those words were mainly directed at Su Zimo and Beiming Shui. After all, this was their first time in the blessed heaven world. Su Zimo pondered for a moment and asked, is there any other way of returning to the blessed heaven world from the evil fiend battlefield apart from using the battle merits of the blessed heaven world badge? Using the blessed heaven world badge to teleport would consume battle merits after all. The battle merits on their badges were distributed from Lin Xuanzhen. It would be best if they could save them. Yes. Lu Yun nodded. There are still 10 spatial nodes that can be used to teleport out from the evil fiend battlefield at any time. However, the locations of these 10 spatial nodes change frequently. Unless you're extremely lucky, it's very difficult to find such spatial nodes within the 10 days. Yu Lan said, Brother Su, actually, there's no need for you and Beiming Shui to take the risk with Xuanzhen and the others. With Xuanzhen leading the team this time round, the combat strength of the 8 of them is enough. It won't be too late for you and Beiming Shui to enter the evil fiend battlefield after your cultivation realms advance to the Paradise Void realm. Actually, Yu Lan's true thoughts were that if Su Zimo and Beiming Shui, the master and disciple, entered with the group, Lin Xuanzhen and the others would have to spend a portion of their energy protecting them. Not only were the 2 of them unnecessary, they might even drag down Lin Xuanzhen and the others. However, Yu Lan said it rather tactfully and did not make things awkward. Feng Shu and Bai Tianxing exchanged glances and understood what Yu Lan was implying. Feng Shu smiled as well. That's right. Brother Su, if you're interested, you can take a look at the 10 gigantic screens in the Blessed Heaven World Square first. You can also have a rough understanding of the evil fiend battlefield and accumulate experience. Su Zimo pondered for a moment. Let's enter and take a look together. It won't be too late for me to withdraw if anything happens. In reality, Su Zimo was not interested in killing the so-called evil fiends and sin spirits to obtain battle merits. However, Lin Xuanzhen and the others were taking a huge risk to fight in the evil fiend battlefield this time round for the sake of the Venus Black Gold Stone. The Venus Black Gold Stone was a stabilizing treasure meant for Sword Burial Peak. As the Peak Master of Sword Burial Peak, he could not stay out of it. When Yu Lan and the others heard Su Zimo's words, they knew they could not persuade him anymore. Lu Yun waved it off. There's no harm in Brother Su going in with them. Pausing for a moment, Lu Yun looked at Lin Xuanzhen and the others with a serious expression. However, Wang Dong, Xuanzhen, the 8 of you must take good care of Brother Su and Beiming Shui and ensure their safety. Wang Dong said in a deep voice, Don't worry, Master. Once we enter the evil fiend battlefield, we'll form the formation of the Myriad Sword Formation and protect Peak Master Su and Junior Sister Beiming in the middle. When she heard that, Beiming Shui turned to look at Su Zimo with a strange expression. Su Zimo had never used his full strength in the sword world. Although everyone knew that he had comprehended the Immortal vanquishing sword, due to his cultivation realm, even if he comprehended a peerless divine power, they did not think that he could unleash much power. No one knew his true strength, not even Beiming Shui. However, Beiming Shui was at least certain that Su Zimo definitely did not need anyone's protection. Su Zimo had a calm expression and did not say anything. Gong Suanyu said, Peak Masters, don't worry. After all, we have the Blessed Heaven World Badge with us. Even if we encounter danger, we can escape unscathed. Lu Yun said in a deep voice, even with the Blessed Heaven World Badge, you can't be careless. Countless paragons and monster incarnates from the major worlds have been buried in the evil fiend battlefield. Bai Tianxing nodded. Some paragons are arrogant and think that their combat strength is unparalleled. They search for powerful evil fiends everywhere to fight. By the time they want to leave the evil fiend battlefield, they no longer have the chance to use the Blessed Heaven World Badge. There were also some perfected spirits who were killed by the evil fiends and sin spirits inside instantly and did not have the time to use the Blessed Heaven World Badge. Yu Lan added, The Blessed Heaven World Badge is only a way out for you guys. It can't guarantee your safety completely. Don't be careless. Lu Yun continued, if you encounter any danger inside or the 10 great evil fiends, don't engage in battle. Use your Blessed Heaven World Badge to teleport back immediately. Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others nodded in agreement. Actually, the few of them were already getting impatient. They were all number 1 of the various sword peaks and it was not their first time entering the evil fiend battlefield. They were filled with confidence and could not wait to enter the evil fiend battlefield to fight to their heart's content. The 10 great evil fiends. Su Zimo's expression changed. Lu Yun explained, there were a huge number of evil fiends and sin spirits in the evil fiend battlefield and some powerful evil fiends were born as well. All of them are at the level of supreme perfected spirits. The perfected spirits of the 10,000 races chose the 10 strongest evil fiends in the evil fiend battlefield after countless battles, naming them the 10 great evil fiends. Meng Hao was speechless. So powerful. Lu Yun said, most of the paragons of the various worlds died in the hands of the 10 great evil fiends. Therefore, even the supreme perfected spirits on the battle merits Jade Steely might not be able to take on the 10 great evil fiends. Yu Lan said, it's precisely because of the existence of the 10 great evil fiends that the perfected spirits of the 10,000 races can't obtain battle merits wantonly in the evil fiend battlefield. For example, supreme perfected spirits on the battle merits Jade Steely would definitely be targeted by at least one of the 10 great evil fiends the moment they enter the evil fiend battlefield. Gong Suanyu laughed. Among the 10 of us here, none of us are on the battle merits Jade Steely. We should not attract the attention of the 10 great evil fiends. Yes. Lu Yun nodded. No matter what, you guys have to be careful in the evil fiend battlefield. Even if we see you encountering danger within, we can't do anything to help you guys. Before entering the evil fiend battlefield, you have to wear your Blessed Heaven World badge on your waists and reveal it outside. The Blessed Heaven World badge is the embodiment of your identity. Apart from some special-looking evil fiends, there are many sin spirits that are no different from living beings of the 10,000 races in the evil fiend battlefield. The Blessed Heaven World badge will help us determine if they are sin spirits or living beings of the Trichiliocosm. Under the repeated instructions of the 4 Peak Masters, Su Zimo, Lin Xuanzhen, and the others were ready. They stepped onto the teleportation formation under one of the gigantic screens and disappeared from the Blessed Heaven World Square. Lu Yun's expression was dark as he looked at the spot where Su Zimo and the others disappeared. That was because everyone had just fought the Heavenly Eye race before arriving at the Blessed Heaven World, and King Cold Eye had even said harsh words. Therefore, Lu Yun was worried the entire time. It was not that the perfected spirits of the Sword World in this generation could not go against the Heavenly Eye World. However, Lin Xuanzhen, Su Zimo and Yun Ting had yet to reach their peak and more time was needed. As long as the 3 of them continued to grow, they would definitely be qualified to leave their names on the Battle Merits Jade Steely. Don't worry. Yu Lan could tell that Lu Yun was worried and consoled. Although Brother Su and Beiming Shui are not strong enough, Lin Xuanzhen's group of 8 is extremely familiar with the myriad sword formation. Once it's circulated, there are almost no openings. Feng Shu said, if Lin Xuanzhen can make use of this opportunity while fighting with the evil fiends and sin spirits to comprehend the true killing essence of the immortal vanquishing sword, she can advance to become a supreme perfected spirit. At that time, it would be extremely easy for her to obtain the 1,000 battle merits. I hope so. Yu Lan revealed a look of anticipation as well. The spirit consciousnesses of the 4 Peak Masters probed into the 10 gigantic screens and found Su Zimo, Lin Xuanzhen, and the others before long. Over there. Lu Yun pointed at one of the gigantic screens. Area 3 of the Evil Fiend battlefield. Chapter 2787, Chapter 2787, Rakshasa Race. Chapter 2787, Rakshasa Race. Accompanied by a slight dizziness, Su Zimo and the others left Blessed Heaven World Square in the blink of an eye and descended into a completely different space. The moment Lin Xuanzhen, Wang Dong and the others descended, they released their spirit consciousnesses and formed the myriad sword formation, protecting Su Zimo and Beiming Shui in the middle. They were on guard and scanned their surroundings carefully. The 10 of them were located in a valley that was surrounded by mountains on 3 sides. On the other side was the exit of the valley and a dark and deep forest could be seen. The surroundings were quiet and even a little sinister. Even the air seemed moist and emitted a faint smell of blood. This was the evil fiend battlefield. Everyone looked around and did not discover any danger. Only then did they heave a sigh of relief and their tense minds gradually relaxed. That way. Lin Xuanzhen pointed in the direction of the exit of the valley and said in a deep voice. Although Su Zimo had the highest status among the 10 of them, in everyone's opinion, Lin Xuanzhen was the #1 perfected immortal of the Sword World and should be the commander of this team. No one had any objections to her decision. Lin Xuanzhen, Wang Dong and the others did not advance quickly. Furthermore, they maintained the myriad sword formation the entire time. Lin Xuanzhen stood right at the front and was equivalent to the tip of the immortal sword. If anything happened, she would be the first to attack. After 5 minutes, everyone walked out of the valley and did not encounter any danger during the entire process. Peak Master, Junior Sister Beiming, don't mind us being slow. Wang Dong explained, in the evil fiend battlefield, it's best to advance on the ground. Although it's slower, it's relatively safer and we won't attract the attention of too many evil fiends and sin spirits. Of course, it's a different story for some powerful and fearless supreme perfected spirits. Su Zimo nodded. Given everyone's methods, they could easily fly through the air and leave the valley in a couple dozens of breaths. However, if they sped through midair, It would be easier for them to reveal their tracks and attract the attacks of a large number of evil fiends and sin spirit. The exit of the valley was still a distance away from the dense forest in the north. In the middle was a vast plain with long grass that was half the height of a person. Su Zimo's expression changed and he suddenly said, "Someone's here." "Who is it?" Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others were stunned and could not react in time. Throughout, they observed everything and spread out their spirit consciousnesses. However, they did not discover any abnormalities or anyone approaching. They were all Paradise Void perfected immortals, but they could not sense any danger. How could Su Zimo have sensed it before them? They are very fast. Su Zimo frowned slightly and said once more, "We're surrounded." Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others still did not notice anything amiss. Li Shui, Shen Yu, and the others exchanged glances and pouted slightly. Although they did not say anything, they were disapproving in their hearts. It was true that Su Zimo was the peak master of the Ninth Sword Peak and they did not dare to discuss anything openly. However, the few of them were more or less disgruntled with Su Zimo. He was merely a celestial being perfected immortal, but he ascended to become a peak master with a status that's above theirs. The few of them were all Paradise Void perfected immortals and number one of the various sword peaks. Naturally, they felt a little upset about it. Right now, in their opinions, Su Zimo's warning seemed like it was an overreaction due to his nervousness. Gong Suanyu coughed gently. "Peak Master Su, you might be too nervous. You and junior sister Beiming don't have to worry. As long as you follow us closely, you won't. Everyone, be careful. There's danger." Before Gong Suanyu could finish, Lin Xuanzhen suddenly spoke and said quickly, "Buzz." Before her sentence was finished, the immortal sword on Lin Xuanzhen's back was unsheathed and landed in her palm, emitting a sword beam. It was only then that everyone realized that danger was indeed approaching. Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others summoned their immortal swords one after another and waited with rapt attention. At that moment, Wang Dong and the others finally sensed danger. The other party was menacing and sped over from all directions. They had already formed an encirclement and their speed was shocking. When Wang Dong and the others first sensed the other party, they were still 50 kilometers away. In the blink of an eye, they had already entered a radius of 5 kilometers. What a fast movement technique! Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others were shocked. Apart from killing techniques, the sword world specialized in movement techniques and speed as well. But now, the movement technique of the other party was clearly above everyone. In fact, the speed of that movement technique was so fast that it could escape the capture and envelopment of their spirit consciousnesses. That was not all. As far as everyone could see, they could not catch sight of the figures of the other party at all. They could only judge by the swaying of the surrounding long grass. The surrounding grass seemed to have encountered a huge impact and snapped and fell. It was unknown what terrifying living beings were hidden in the grass, but ravines appeared and they approached everyone from the sword world rapidly. Wang Dong and Gong Suanyu had nervous expressions and their palms were sweating. None of them expected to encounter such a danger the moment they descended on the evil fiend battlefield. Lin Xuanzhen had a calm expression. She closed her eyes and tried her best to sense the surroundings. Suddenly, Lin Xuanzhen opened her eyes and hollered, "Attack!" With her as the leader, Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others attacked one after another and activated their Dao fruits. The myriad sword formation was activated instantly and terrifying sword chi burst forth in all directions. The 8 of them had known each other for many years and had great chemistry. Although they had yet to see their opponent, when they heard Lin Xuanzhen's voice, everyone chose to believe her judgment and activated the myriad sword formation immediately. Kai, 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 Kai. The myriad sword formation circulated like a gigantic spiral winch, cutting through the dense long grass in the surroundings and creating large empty areas. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of metal clashing could be heard from the grass. As for the grass, it shattered. The other party knew that they could not hide their tracks and soared into the air one after another, finally revealing their true bodies. When they saw the other party, the pupils of Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others constricted slightly. As for Su Zimo and Beiming Shui, A look of surprise flashed through their eyes. Most of the living beings were tall and ugly. They had green faces, fangs, and dark skin and stood in midair with 2 pairs of gigantic flesh wings on their backs. The ends of the wings, fingers, and toes of such living beings had sharp nails that shone with a faint cold glint. Each of them wielded a gigantic curved saber like an evil ghost from hell. As for a small number of them, their appearances were not much different from humans. Although they had 2 pairs of flesh wings on their backs, they had slender figures and beautiful faces that were rather moving. Rakshasa race. When Suzimo saw the other party, he recognized the origins of this group of living beings immediately. The Rakshasa race was one of the primordial 9 races of Tianhuang mainland. The men of the Rakshasa race had ugly and terrifying appearances. They possessed black bodies, vermilion hair, and had green faces with fangs. They were terrifying. On the other hand, the women were graceful and beautiful, not much different from humans. Of course, the Rakshasa race before him was slightly different from those back in Tianhuang mainland. The Rakshasa race of Tianhuang mainland only had a pair of flesh wings. However, the living beings before him all had 2 pairs of wings and looked even stronger. Chapter 2788, Chapter 2788, Opening. Chapter 2788, Opening. It was no wonder why the other party's movement technique was so fast. In Tianhuang mainland, the Rakshasa race had one of the fastest movement techniques among the 10,000 races with just a single pair of flesh wings. There were more than 100 Rakshasas and they were all perfected spirits. Among them, there were more than 80 paradise void perfected spirits. The remaining few were convergence, celestial being and hollow nether perfected spirits. This is a little troublesome. Sword Immortal Tai Lai had a grim expression as he sent a voice transmission. Gong Suanyu said softly, "It's not impossible for us to fight if it's just this group of Rakshasa ghosts. However, the Rakshasa ghosts' movement techniques are way too fast. It's easy to injure them, but it's difficult to kill them." The scene before them was much more troublesome than when they faced hundreds of heavenly eye-perfected spirits back in the 7 Stars Sword world. At that time, although the heavenly eye race had hundreds of perfected spirits, there were not many paradise void perfected spirits among them. Right now, there were close to 100 paradise void perfected spirits among the Rakshasas. Most importantly, the Rakshasa race was best at movement techniques and speed. They came and went without a trace and could travel 1,000 miles in an instant. Just as Gong Suanyu had said, even if they could severely injure some Rakshasa ghosts with the help of the myriad sword formation, the latter could escape from the battlefield as long as they had a moment to catch their breath. It was impossible for everyone to chase after the injured Rakshasas. Once someone attacked and chased after the heavily injured Rakshasas, their sword formation would dissipate and they would be at a disadvantage since they would have to fight on their own. In reality, the Rakshasa race was the last thing the perfected spirits of the Tinchilia Chasm wanted to encounter in the evil fiend battlefield. Even if they encountered the Rakshasa race, most perfected spirits would choose to avoid the battle. That was because most of the time, in fights against perfected spirits of the Rakshasa race, even if they could win, they might not have a chance to kill the latter. As such, they would waste their energy for nothing. Furthermore, there were more than 100 Rakshasas now. Rakshasa ghost. When Suzimo heard how Gong Suanyu addressed the Rakshasa race, his heart skipped a beat as though he thought of something in deep thought. Most of the primordial 9 races of Tianhuang mainland dominated a region in the upper world. In fact, some of them were even in super large worlds. For example, the god race of the light world, the heavenly eye race of the heavenly eye world, the barbarian race of the barbarian world and the 3D golden crow of the golden crow world. These races either had strong bloodlines, powerful physiques, or terrifying talents. However, Suzimo had not expected the Rakshasa race to appear in the evil fiend battlefield. This meant that the Rakshasa race was a type of evil fiend in the upper world. Maintain the sword formation and retreat towards the dense forest. Right then, Lin Xuanzhen's voice sounded in everyone's minds. Lin Xuanzhen made a prompt decision and charged towards the dense forest with Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others following closely behind. The formation of the 8 of them seemed to have condensed into an immortal sword as they headed towards the dense forest. Lin Xuanzhen also realized that there was no benefit in fighting against this group of Rakshasas. The gains did not make up for the losses. Even if they fought, they might not be able to obtain much battle merits. Instead, it would take a huge toll on them. However, although the 10 people of the sword world wanted to leave, the 100-odd Rakshasas around them were not agreeable to that. Kill. Accompanied by a sharp howl, more than 100 Rakshasa perfected spirits flapped the gigantic flesh wings on their backs and wielded dual sabers. They transformed into streaks of black light and charged towards Su Zimo and the others. Kai, 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 Kai. The sword formation circulated and released countless sword chi that surged in midair, as though they formed an impenetrable sword net. More than 100 Rakshasas circled and danced around the sword net continuously, wielding their dual sabers and colliding with the sword net, causing sparks to fly. The movement technique of the Rakshasa race was way too fast. Even though Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others released their spirit consciousnesses, they could not lock onto it. They could only rely on the myriad sword formation that they circulated to defend against more than 100 Rakshasas. Many Rakshasas could tell that Su Zimo and Beiming Shui's cultivation realms were the weakest. They glared at the 2 of them and attacked repeatedly. However, the myriad sword formation formed by Lin Xuanzhen and the others circulated at full strength without any openings, and the Rakshasas could not charge in immediately. Lin Xuanzhen's group of 10 retreated while fighting. Although they could not kill the Rakshasas could not break through the defense of the myriad sword formation either. Beiming Shui followed closely behind Su Zimo and was puzzled. She could not help but send a voice transmission. Master, the attacks of this group of Rakshasa ghosts are ferocious and they're clearly bent on killing us. What's the use even if we retreat into the forest? Su Zimo said, that dense forest is dark and deep with ancient trees towering into the clouds. It will affect and restrict the movement techniques of the Rakshasas. Beiming Shui understood instantly after Su Zimo's reminder. The Rakshasas could only unleash their movement techniques to the greatest extent in a wide space. In the dense forest, there were many ancient trees. Although they could not defend against the sharp flesh wings of the Rakshasas, it would definitely affect their movement techniques to a certain extent. Against top-tier perfected spirits, that slight difference could be extremely fatal. Why, after a moment of battle, Lin Xuanzhen and the others were completely unharmed thanks to the myriad sword formation. Su Zimo and Beiming Shui were in the center of the formation and they were not injured either. On the other hand, some low-level perfected spirits of the Rakshasa race were injured by Lin Xuanzhen's immortal sword. Although they were not killed and managed to escape from the battlefield in time, many Rakshasas were enraged and the killing intent in their eyes intensified. Just as the 10 people of the sword world were about to enter the forest, a paradise void Rakshasa woman suddenly shrieked. Freeze! Suddenly, a visible halo burst forth from the glabella of the Rakshasa woman and enveloped Lin Xuanzhen and the others. Supreme divine power, time stop. Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others had calm expressions and did not think much of it. A single supreme divine power could not affect the myriad sword formation at all. Only Su Zimo frowned slightly and sensed something amiss. That was indeed the divine power of time stop. However, there was a trace of astral imprisonment's power in the divine power that the Rakshasa woman comprehended. Astral imprisonment was a peerless divine power. Watch out. Right then, Lin Xuanzhen sensed something amiss as well and reminded hurriedly. Initially, the myriad sword formation circulated normally. However, after the Rakshasa woman released time stop, the myriad sword formation suddenly paused. That pause did not affect Lin Xuanzhen, Wang Dong, and the others much. However, it caused an opening to be revealed in the myriad sword formation. Swoosh! Everyone felt their vision blur as a ghostly figure flashed past. Instinctively, Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others brandished their swords to defend. However, their immortal swords struck nothing. Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others seemed to have thought of something and their expressions changed drastically. That opening was not much of a threat to them. However, Su Zimo and Beiming Shui, who were at the center of the formation, were instantly exposed to the Rakshasas. That opening was enough to kill Su Zimo and Beiming Shui. Chapter 2789, Chapter 2789, Shock. Chapter 2789, Shock. Among the 100-odd perfected spirits of the Rakshasa race, the Rakshasa woman had the strongest combat strength and was their commander who controlled the entire situation. Although she released the supreme divine power, time stop, and revealed an opening in the myriad sword formation, she could clearly tell from that exchange earlier on that the 8 people who formed the sword formation were not weak. It was unrealistic to kill any of the 8 of them using that slight opening. Furthermore, the only sword-wielding woman among the 8 of them was so strong that she even felt a huge threat. She only had an instant chance. After that moment, the sword-wielding woman would react. That brief moment was definitely not enough to deal with a Paradise Void perfected spirit. However, she could kill the Convergence and Celestial Being perfected spirits without any issues at all. Her target was the man and woman in the middle of the sword formation. It was not a spur-of-the-moment decision, but the result of careful consideration and planning. These people thought that they could make use of the terrain advantage of the dense forest to defend against the Rakshasas. However, she would make sure they left 2 corpses behind before they got into the dense forest. In a flash, she wielded 2 sabers and transformed into a black streak of light, arriving in front of the man and woman in the middle of the sword formation. The man and woman seemed to have been scared silly and were unable to react, standing on the spot motionlessly. The man had a handsome face and clear eyes as he looked up at her. When their eyes met, she felt a strange feeling in her heart. This person actually doesn't seem that detestable. How about sparing his life? The moment that thought flashed through her mind, she erased it. Since he chose to enter this place, it's nothing more than to hunt them down and obtain battle merits. No one is innocent, and it's the same for this person. At that thought, she no longer hesitated and the 2 curved saber in her hands flashed, slashing towards the man and woman's head. With just a single slash, their heads were sliced into 2. Even their Dao fruits could not defend against her sabers. Suddenly, the green-robed man opposite her raised his hand. He did not move much and there were no stances. He merely extended a finger and tapped her 2 sabers. When she saw the green-robed man extend his finger, she did not take it to heart at all. Even if the green-robed man summoned his spirit treasure, he would not be able to defend against the sharpness of her sabers, let alone a single finger. The difference in cultivation realm and strength between the 2 of them was way too great. However, the moment the green-robed man's finger struck the sabers, her body trembled slightly and her expression changed with disbelief in her eyes. That jade-like finger was like a heaven-piercing stone pillar that struck her sabers heavily, releasing shocking strength. At that moment, she almost lost her grip on the sabers in her hand. The web between her thumb and index finger was torn instantly and blood flowed profusely. Her heart skipped a beat. Right then, a blazing and cold sword light appeared before her. It arrived instantly with a chilling killing intent. It was the sword-wielding woman who attacked. Under normal circumstances, that sword could not injure her at all. However, her saber momentum was blocked by the green-robed man's finger and she paused. Most importantly, the scene earlier on had dealt a huge blow to her heart and her reaction was slower. She suddenly turned sideways and flapped her flesh wings desperately, wanting to escape from the sword light. Unfortunately, she was still a step too late. One of her arms and 2 wings on one side were severed by that single slash and blood gushed out, spraying in midair. Despite being severely injured, she still relied on the innate divine power of the Rakshasa race to condense 2 blood-colored wings with her bloodline to maintain her balance and transformed into a blood beam to escape from the battlefield. What a pity! When they saw that, Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu and the others thought to themselves. The movement technique of the Rakshasa race was way too fast. Even if they were severely injured, there might not be a chance to kill them. Of course, given Lin Xuanzhen's combat strength, there was a high chance that she could kill the woman if she continued chasing. However, once Lin Xuanzhen was gone, it would be difficult for them to form the myriad sword formation. Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others might not be in danger since they could easily protect themselves given their methods. However, that was equivalent to exposing Su Zimo and Beiming Shui to danger. Su Zimo's exchange with the Rakshasa woman happened in a flash. Furthermore, Su Zimo's movements were extremely subtle. Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others did not notice it and thought that Lin Xuanzhen had saved Su Zimo and Beiming Shui in time. Only Lin Xuanzhen frowned slightly and felt that something was amiss. Under normal circumstances, her sword should not have been able to strike that Rakshasa woman. However, after the Rakshasa woman attacked, she suddenly paused strangely. That was the reason why the Rakshasa woman was severely injured by her sword. Right now, the battle was still ongoing. Lin Xuanzhen did not think too much about it and covered everyone as they charged into the dense forest. When the Rakshasas saw that their commander was severely injured, their eyes turned bloodshot. They had no intention of letting Lin Xuanzhen and the others off and insisted on charging into the dense forest to continue their pursuit. Stop chasing. Right then, the female commander of the Rakshasa race suddenly hollered. When the 100-odd Rakshasas heard that, they did not dare to disobey and lingered outside the dense forest for a while before flying back to the female commander's side. Commander, a Rakshasa said hatefully, are we going to let them off so easily? As long as we continue chasing and exhaust them slowly, they won't be able to hold on for long. The sword formation of this group of sword cultivators is indeed a little troublesome. However, the man and woman in the sword formation is their weakness. As long as we keep an eye on them, we'll have a chance to break the formation and kill them one by one. That's right. Among this group of sword cultivators, only that woman is a little troublesome. The rest are nothing to be afraid of. The group of Rakshasas spoke one after another, but the female commander remained silent. Weakness. A moment later, she sneered and handed the two sabers in her hands to everyone. The Rakshasas focused their gazes and their expressions could not help but change. The two sabers were filled with cracks and were completely crippled. How could this be? A Rakshasa asked carefully. Commander, your weapon is an 8 tribulations spirit treasure, right? The Rakshasa female commander said coldly, the weakness you guys mentioned earlier on shattered my destiny spirit treasure with a single finger. Pest. The Rakshasas gasped. To be able to shatter an 8 tribulations spirit treasure with a single finger, what kind of power was that? Among that group of people, that woman is merely a little troublesome. As for the green-robed man in the sword formation, he's the truly terrifying hidden expert. The Rakshasa female commander asked coldly, you guys want to continue chasing them? Do you want to die? A Rakshasa asked softly, Commander, since that green-robed man is so powerful, should we inform the great commander and get him to eliminate that person? The Rakshasa female commander was silent for a moment before shaking her head. There's no need for that for now. However, go back and inform our clansmen to avoid this group of sword cultivators for the time being. We'll wait and see how the situation develops. Understood. Many Rakshasas dispersed one after another and transformed into streaks of black light, disappearing into the horizon. The Rakshasa female commander looked in the direction of the dense forest with a confused expression. Logically speaking, given the capabilities of the green-robed man, he should be able to kill her. However, why would he spare her life and let her leave? Chapter 2790, Chapter 2790, Self-Destructing Dao Fruit. Chapter 2790, Self-Destructing Dao Fruit. In the dense forest. Everyone from the sword world sped for a while. When they saw that no Rakshasas were chasing after them, they heaved a sigh of relief and consumed some spirit pills and immortal herbs to rest on the spot. Indeed. Gong Suanyu chuckled. The Rakshasas are wary of the dense forest since their movement techniques would be restricted. That's why they don't dare to continue chasing and can only give up. If they had entered the dense forest, quite a few of those Rakshasas would have definitely died. Li Shui said coldly. When Wang Dong saw that Su Zimo and Beiming Shui were fine, he patted his chest and said with lingering fear, I was scared to death earlier on. Thankfully, Peak Master Su and Junior Sister Beiming are fine. Otherwise, we would have committed unforgivable crimes. Sword Immortal Tai Lai added, fortunately, Senior Sister Lin attacked in time and severely injured the female Rakshasa ghost. Otherwise, The consequences would have been unimaginable. Su Zimo did not explain further and turned to look at Lin Xuanzhen, cupping his fists slightly. Thank you for saving me, fellow Daoist Lin. Although he was the peak master of the ninth sword peak, he had never put on any airs when facing cultivators of the same cultivation realm like Lin Xuanzhen and Wang Dong. He addressed most of them as fellow Daoists. Lin Xuanzhen nodded and did not say anything. However, she still felt a little strange and looked at Su Zimo deeply. Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others chatted as they rested, exchanging their insights from the battle. Lin Xuanzhen rolled her eyes at Su Zimo and asked in a seemingly casual manner, Peak Master Su, your senses are very sharp. You discovered that group of Rakshasas a long time ago. In reality, Lin Xuanzhen had noticed Su Zimo a long time ago. When she first heard that Su Zimo had become the peak master of the ninth sword peak, she was indignant as well. However, when she headed to the ninth sword peak and comprehended the sword burial Dao once, she realized how terrifying this sword Dao was. The person who could create such a sword Dao was definitely extraordinary. However, Su Zimo was in seclusion all year round and rarely came out. The two of them did not have much chance to interact either. Among cultivators of the same cultivation realm, the only person Lin Xuanzhen could not see through was Su Zimo. The sentence she just said was also meant to test him. She was puzzled. Su Zimo was only at the celestial being realm. How could he discover the movements of the Rakshasa ghosts before her? At the mention of that, Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu and the others reacted one after another. Gong Suanyu was a little embarrassed and chuckled awkwardly. Peak Master, I thought that you were too nervous earlier on. To think that you were right. Su Zimo smiled without saying anything. Of course, among the 8 of them, Shen Yu, Li Shui and the others were still disapproving and merely treated it as a casual remark by Su Zimo who happened to get it right. After the battle, everyone relaxed and chatted while resting in high spirits. Su Zimo sat on the spot quietly, deep in thought. In reality, given his methods, he could definitely have killed the Rakshasa commander earlier on. In fact, it was not difficult for him to kill off the entire group of Rakshasas. However, the appearance of the Rakshasa race in the evil fiend battlefield made him think of something else. That was the reason why he was in a daze. The moment the female commander of the Rakshasa race attacked him, he wanted to kill her on the spot. However, the moment they exchanged blows, he looked into the other party's eyes and face and suddenly recalled an old friend from Tianhuang mainland. Rakshasa Yu. Although Rakshasa Yu did not have a deep relationship with him, there was some inseparable karma between them. Rakshasa Yu had once submitted to the martial Dao prime body. Later on, when she regained her freedom, she had never betrayed him either. Furthermore, after she led the Rakshasa race, there had never been any conflicts with the human race. That alone was a monumental merit. Recalling Rakshasa Yu, Su Zimo did not kill her. He did not stop the Rakshasa female commander from escaping after being severely injured by Lin Xuanzhen as well. Master, are you thinking about Rakshasa Yu? Right then, Beiming Shui's voice suddenly sounded in Su Zimo's mind. Only Beiming Shui could roughly guess Su Zimo's thoughts. Su Zimo nodded. To think that the Rakshasa race would be reduced to be a part of the evil fiends and sin spirits in the upper world. After Rakshasa Yu ascended to the upper world, it must have been extremely difficult for her to survive. In fact, she might have even landed in this evil fiend battlefield. At that thought, Su Zimo suddenly regretted it. If he had known earlier, he should have captured a Rakshasa and questioned him carefully. Before long, everyone recovered and got up to hurry on their way once more. The dense forest was dark and deep with countless towering ancient trees that blocked one's vision. Even the range of one's spirit consciousness was greatly obstructed. As everyone advanced, the forest was silent. Only when everyone stepped on rotten leaves and branches would they make occasional sounds, making the forest look exceptionally sinister. Suddenly, Su Zimo frowned and shifted his gaze to an ancient tree diagonally in front of him. The ancient tree grew in the darkness and was no different from the other trees in the surroundings. However, Su Zimo's spirit perception was way too strong. He could sense that someone was hiding there and was almost one with the ancient tree. Su Zimo did not attack right away. That was because the living being hidden there was not an evil fiend but a human identical to them. However, this person did not have a blessed heaven world badge on his waist. Right then, Lin Xuanzhen, who was walking at the front, stopped. She did not attack. Instead, she turned to look in Su Zimo's direction before drawing the immortal sword on her back and slashing towards the ancient tree. The ancient tree snapped. Not only that, the ancient tree was split into two and spewed scarlet blood strangely as it fell heavily to the ground. When Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others saw Lin Xuanzhen suddenly stop, they realized that something was amiss. When Lin Xuanzhen severed the ancient tree, they realized that there was someone hidden in the darkness over there. Dressed in black, the person collapsed in a pool of blood and his body was sliced into two by Lin Xuanzhen's immortal sword. The terrifying sword qi had long surged into his body and even his consciousness. His Dao fruit was covered in sword marks. The black-robed man was only a hollow nether-perfected immortal and he could not defend against a casual slash from Lin Xuanzhen. However, the black-robed man did not say anything the entire time. Even though his body was severed by Lin Xuanzhen, he did not reveal any pain on his face and merely looked at Su Zimo and the others coldly. Lin Xuanzhen carried her immortal sword that was untainted by the blood and strode to the black-robed man's side, looking down with an indifferent gaze. "All of you will die here." Suddenly, the black-robed man spoke. Before his sentence was finished, a resplendent light burst forth from the black-robed man's glabella, emitting a shuddering power fluctuation. Even Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. The black-robed man was so resolute that he wanted to self-destruct his Dao fruit and use the terrifying power derived from the shattering of the Dao fruit to drag Lin Xuanzhen down with her. At the peak of the Paradise Void realm, after the Dao fruit exploded, there was a chance that it could pierce through the void and create a grotto heaven. Although it was only a hollow nether Dao fruit, it would give rise to an extremely terrifying power once it exploded. Buzz! The immortal sword in Lin Xuanzhen's hand trembled slightly. A sword beam entered the black-robed man's glabella and pierced his essence spirit instantly. With the death of the black-robed man, the light on his glabella dimmed as well. Lin Xuanzhen seemed to have expected this and did not give him a chance to self-destruct his Dao fruit. Chapter 2791, Chapter 2791, Ambush. Chapter 2791, Ambush. The Dao fruit was the condensed essence of a cultivator's cultivation. Unless it was absolutely necessary, most cultivators would not choose such a resolute method. Everyone would always hope to get lucky. Even when they were on the verge of death, they were unwilling to give up their last hope and chance of survival. However, the black-robed man did not hesitate at all. Lin Xuanzhen held the immortal sword in her hand and raised tip of her sword slightly against the black-robed man's glabella, digging out his Dao fruit. Unfortunately, this person's Dao fruit was already filled with cracks and its use was greatly reduced. Lin Xuanzhen removed the person's storage bag again and swept it with her spirit consciousness before throwing it on the ground casually. Wang Dong explained softly to Su Zimo and Beiming Shui, "Most of these evil fiends and sin spirits don't have any treasures and their pockets are empty. Therefore, our storage bags are extremely attractive to them." After killing that person, Lin Xuanzhen said indifferently, "If the human cultivators in the evil fiend battlefield don't have the blessed heaven world badge, they can be treated as sin spirits and there's no need to be benevolent to them." Those words seemed unnecessary. Before entering the evil fiend battlefield, everyone already knew about this. For some reason, Lin Xuanzhen explained it again. Only Su Zimo could tell that Lin Xuanzhen's words were actually directed at him. Wang Dong added, "That's right. Even if we don't kill them, the other party will kill us immediately. The moment we step into the evil fiend battlefield, we are irreconcilable enemies with the evil fiends and sin spirits and have to fight them to the death." Su Zimo pondered for a moment. "Actually, I've cultivated the myriad sword formation over the years as well. Why don't you count me in?" Well, when they heard that, Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu and the others exchanged glances with troubled expressions and fell silent for a moment. Under normal circumstances, a sword formation formed by 9 people was indeed stronger than one formed by 8. However, Peak Master Su's cultivation realm was only at the celestial realm. If he joined the sword formation, he would become an obvious weakness in the sword formation. The power of the sword formation would decrease rather than increase. In short, if Peak Master Su joined the sword formation, he would drag down the 8 of them instead. However, it was not appropriate to tell Peak Master Su about this openly as it might hurt his dignity. A moment later, it was Wang Dong who coughed gently and said with a smile, "Peak Master Su, the 8 of us are more familiar in cooperating with one another for the myriad sword formation. You haven't cultivated the sword formation for long and we might not be used to you suddenly joining in. For the next few days, you can observe our cooperation in the sword formation and familiarize yourself with it first." "Exactly." Gong Suanyu added hurriedly, "We understand what you're thinking, Peak Master Su. You want to help as well, but there's no need to be anxious, Peak Master. Once we encounter some convergence or celestial being evil fiends or sin spirits in the future, we'll definitely let you display your skills, Peak Master." "All right." Su Zimo could tell what Wang Dong and the others were implying and did not insist. To him, it did not matter if he joined the sword formation or not. If Lin Xuanzhen and the others really encountered any danger that they could not resolve, he could attack at any moment. This ambush was just a small interlude for everyone. No one took it to heart and continued forward. Before long, another commotion sounded from the darkness in the depths of the forest. This time round, even without Su Zimo's reminder, Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others sensed danger. "Get into formation and be on guard," Lin Xuanzhen reminded, and everyone slowed down. After that, there was a long period of silence. The surrounding temperature seemed to have dropped to the freezing point and the atmosphere was oppressive. Everyone knew that they would definitely face a massacre next. After an unknown period of time, divine powers and dharmic treasures suddenly burst forth from the darkness and enveloped Lin Xuanzhen and the others. The myriad sword formation circulated once more and surged with endless sword qi, tearing apart the surrounding darkness. Dozens of figures charged out from the darkness and looked at Su Zimo and the others murderously. These people were no different from human cultivators. However, they had no blessed heaven world badge hanging on their waists. "Kill." The leader hollered softly. A huge battle broke out between the two sides. Lin Xuanzhen, Wang Dong, and the others attacked with all their might. The Carnage Sword Dao, the Sever Sword Dao, and the Extreme Sword Dao, with the augmentation of the myriad sword formation, the 8 Sword Daos released terrifying lethality. Although the other party had dozens of perfected immortals and had the advantage in numbers, Lin Xuanzhen and the others relied on the myriad sword formation to defend and counterattack. In less than 10 breaths of time, 6 perfected immortals of the other party were severely injured and one of them was killed by Lin Xuanzhen on the spot. Although the dozens of perfected immortals surrounded them, they did not have a formation and fought individually. As such, they could not defend against the myriad sword formation in the end. The moment both parties exchanged blows, they both had a rough understanding of the other's strength. Even if Lin Xuanzhen and the others did not form the myriad sword formation, this group of sin spirits would not be their match. Lin Xuanzhen seemed to have entered a strange state. Her expression was indifferent and her eyes were empty without any emotions. Although she mainly cultivated the Sever Sword Dao, the 3 sword arts released a terrifying killing power in her hands as well. A blood mist filled the air. The baptism of blood nourished Lin Xuanzhen's Carnage Sword Dao continuously. Su Zimo had already comprehended the Immortal vanquishing sword and his understanding of the Carnage Sword Dao surpassed Lin Xuanzhen. He could sense that Lin Xuanzhen would be able to comprehend the Immortal vanquishing sword very soon and was only lacking an opportunity. The battle lasted for less than 100 breaths before the other party began to collapse. More than 10 sin spirits had already fallen in pools of blood and died. The remaining sin spirits could not defend against the attack of the myriad sword formation and retreated one after another, wanting to enter the darkness of the forest once more. If Lin Xuanzhen and the others wanted to continue chasing, it would be difficult for them to maintain the myriad sword formation. Given their methods, they would naturally not encounter any danger. However, Su Zimo and Beiming Shui, who were in the center of the sword formation, were unprotected. Yet, this was an extremely rare opportunity. If they could kill a few more sin spirits, They would be able to obtain 100 battle merits in this battle alone. I chase after them. The two of you stay here and protect Peak Master Su and Junior Sister Beiming, Lin Xuanjun said, and chased after them first. Just as she caught up to the edge of the darkness, Lin Xuanjun suddenly stopped and soared into the air, shouting, "Be careful of Yakshaw Ghost." The soil beneath Lin Xuanjun suddenly split open and a monster with greenish-black skin and sparse green fur on its hump-like head crawled out. It had a steel fork in its hand and charged towards Lin Xuanjun. If Lin Xuanjun had reacted slower and did not stop in time, she would have been pierced by the Yakshaw. This monster was extremely ugly and had a sinister appearance. It was the Yakshaw race that Su Zimo had seen in the Azura battlefield of the Divine Firmament Immortal domain. However, the Yakshaws on the Azura battlefield had died many years ago and merely borrowed the evil blood power to reincarnate. As for the Yakshaw before them, its blood chi was surging and it was filled with vitality. It was a true living creature and its combat strength was countless times stronger than those walking corpses. Chapter 2792, Chapter 2792, Young Monkey. Chapter 2792, Young Monkey. At the same time, 10 black shadows burrowed out of the dense forest and descended from the skies densely like gigantic bats, charging towards Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the other. "Everyone, be careful." Wang Dong's heart skipped a beat as he shouted softly. The bat-like black shadows that descended from the skies were all Heaven Yakshaws. The group of Heaven Yakshaws wielded steel forks and grinned with malevolent expressions. 2 rows of sharp and intersecting sawtooth fangs rubbed up and down, emitting a terrifying sound. The Yakshaw that had just emerged from the ground was an Earth Yakshaw. Both types of Yakshaws were ugly and there were obvious differences in their physiques. For example, under the ribs of the Heaven Yakshaw, there was a thin layer of flesh wings that connected his arms and feet. When they were completely extended, they resembled gigantic bats. The Heaven Yakshaws were best at combat in midair and had agile movement techniques. As for the Earth Yakshaws, they were like fishes in water underground. The timing of the Yakshaw's attacks was extremely precise. They struck the moment Lin Xuanjun left and the sword formation dissipated. The Earth Yakshaw, its combat strength was very strong and it was at the Paradise Void Realm. To think that it could fight Lin Xuanjun and it was difficult to determine the victor in a short period of time. The group of Yakshaws had been hiding in the darkness for an unknown period of time and observed that Lin Xuanjun had the highest combat strength. Therefore, taking advantage of Lin Xuanjun's departure, they launched a violent attack and divided Lin Xuanjun, Wang Dong, and the others into 2 battlefields, destroying them one by one. There had to be at least 8 people in order to form the myriad sword formation. 10 Heaven Yakshaws descended from the skies with ferocious and swift attacks. Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others tried their best to shrink their defensive formation and protect Su Zimo and Beiming Shui in the middle. Although there were 10 Heaven Yakshaws, they could not gain any advantage against Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others. When Su Zimo saw that Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others had the complete advantage, he was not in a hurry to attack. Suddenly, Su Zimo's expression changed and a killing intent flashed through his eyes. In his perception, an Earth Yakshaw was sneaking over from the depths of the ground and staring at Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others, waiting for an opportunity to attack. This Earth Yakshaw was at the Paradise Void Realm and did not take Su Zimo seriously at all. Instead, it wanted to ambush Wang Dong and the others. The Earth Yakshaw hid extremely deeply underground and held its breath. Its heartbeat became almost negligible and its bloodline flow was almost static. Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others were fighting the 10 Heaven Yakshaws and had yet to notice the danger hidden deep underground. In reality, if not for Su Zimo's powerful spirit perception, he might not have sensed the existence of the Earth Yakshaw as well. Su Zimo sneered and touched his glabella gently with his finger. A green light flashed. It was the peerless divine weapon derived from the creation Green Lotus after it grew to grade 12 duckweed sword. Su Zimo held the duckweed sword in his hand and threw it out without any unnecessary movements. Instantly, the duckweed sword sank into the ground and a 2-finger-wide sword hole appeared. How could the Earth Yaksha have expected that a sharp sword would descend from the skies and enter the top of its head without it even moving? Its essence spirit was destroyed and it died on the spot. Even until the moment of its death, the Earth Yaksha did not know what happened. Suzimo retracted the duckweed sword. The entire process was completed almost silently. Even Wang Dong and the others did not know what had happened, let alone the Earth Yaksha deep underground. After Suzimo killed the Earth Yaksha, the entire situation suddenly changed. The 10 Heaven Yakshas who were initially fighting Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others seemed to have sensed something and suddenly became lost and helpless, even having the intention to retreat. The Earth Yaksha that was fighting Lin Xuanzhen suddenly became flustered and revealed many flaws. It was killed on the spot by Lin Xuanzhen's immortal vanquishing sword that was at the level of a quasi-peerless divine power. It seems like the Earth Yaksha I killed has a high status. Suzimo lamented internally. That was the reason why the Yakshas were flustered. When the 10 Heaven Yakshas saw that the situation was bad, they turned around and fled. The auras of Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others surged. How could they let them escape so easily? They chased after them and cooperated with Lin Xuanzhen, who turned around to kill them. In less than 10 breaths, they killed all 10 Heaven Yakshas. Although the battle consumed a lot of energy, Wang Dong and the others were a little excited. The 10 Heaven Yakshas were all at the Paradise Void Realm. That was 2 battle merits. Coupled with the sin spirits that they had just killed, everyone obtained nearly 150 battle merits in this battle. The trip to the Evil Fiend battlefield this time round was much smoother than everyone had imagined. Let's leave this place first. After cleaning up the battlefield briefly without resting, Lin Xuanzhen led everyone forward. There was a high chance that the stench of blood here would attract even stronger evil fiends and sin spirits. There was even a chance that they would encounter other living beings of the Trichiliachasm. Everyone had just experienced a huge battle and needed to rest. They quickened their pace and finally rushed out of the dense forest before night fell. Let's find a safer place to settle down first, Wang Dong said in a deep voice. Everyone searched along the foot of the mountain and finally found a hidden cave. However, it was unknown what was in the cave and it emitted a nauseating stench. Everyone frowned and revealed looks of disgust, prepared to leave this place and find another resting place. Lin Xuanzhen's expression was indifferent as she suddenly said, "It's relatively safe here. This smell can conceal our auras." When he heard that, Suzimo's heart skipped a beat, as though he had recalled something and was in a daze. When Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others saw Lin Xuanzhen's decision, they could not say anything. They held their breaths and walked into the cave. Suzimo narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at the walls around the cave. There seemed to be something smeared on it, and that was the stench emitted from the cave. Wang Dong shook his head gently. I wonder what kind of wild beast has such a strange hobby of smearing its feces in the cave. Suzimo's heart stirred once more. Actually, after Lin Xuanzhen said that, he thought of monkey. However, how could there be such a coincidence in the world? Furthermore, monkey belonged to the demon race and was an ape. He shouldn't appear in the evil fiend battlefield. The 7 of them brothers have all ascended. However, after his ascension, Suzimo had no news of Monkey, Night Spirit, and the others. He did not know where Monkey, Night Spirit, and the others were or if they were fine. Suzimo thought wildly as he followed behind everyone and gradually arrived at the end of the cave. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Suddenly, a soft cry sounded from the end of the cave. Immediately after, in the darkness of the cave, a small monkey stumbled out. It looked like it was only a few months old and had just learned how to walk. The young monkey forced itself to stand up straight and sucked on its fingers. It widened its pitch-black eyes and tilted its head slightly, looking at Suzimo and the others with a curious gaze. Chapter 2793, Chapter 2793, Combat Era. Chapter 2793, Combat Era. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The young monkey did not know how to speak and was not guarded at all when it saw Suzimo and the others. It merely mumbled, as though it was asking something. Occasionally, A faint red light flashed through the young monkey's pitch-black eyes. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat when he noticed the red light. Monkey's eyes had such characteristics as well. The others of the sword world were also surprised to see this young monkey. Wang Dong said, "From the looks of it, this young monkey should be a descendant of a sin spirit and belongs to the sanguine ape race. The red light in its eyes is a unique characteristic of the sanguine ape race." Gong Suanyu said, "The sanguine ape race is not weak among the living beings of the 10,000 races. This is especially true after they mature and awaken the bloodline talent of the sanguine ape race. When they enter a berserk state, their combat strength will increase exponentially and they can even fight head-on against the top races of the 10,000 races." It was only at that moment that Su Zimo realized that Monkey belonged to the sanguine ape race of the upper world. Sword Immortal Tai Lai said, "I heard that in an era in the past, the sanguine ape race dominated the trichiliocosm with invincible combat strength." "That's true." Monk Ju Jian nodded slightly. That era was called the Battle Era. At that time, a peerless expert was born in the sanguine ape race. He fought in the trichiliocosm and was invincible. In the end, he was conferred the title of Great Emperor Combat. Gradually, a figure holding a staff and looking down on the world appeared in Su Zimo's mind. Back when the martial Tao Prime body underwent the tribulation transcendence, an old ape with matchless combat strength was condensed in the 10th tribulation. Now that he thought about it, it should be Great Emperor Combat. Monk Ju Jian sighed. Great Emperor Combat has spent his life fighting against the heavens, the earth and even the living beings of the 10,000 races until he died in battle. It's a pity. When he heard that, Su Zimo frowned and could not help but ask, "This expert of the sanguine ape race has already become a great emperor. Who could have killed him?" "I'm not sure." Monk Ju Jian shook his head. Great Emperor Combat was bewitched and chose to join forces with the evil fiends and become enemies with the 10,000 races. I'm guessing there was no way the heavenly Tao could have tolerated it, right? It's precisely because he's in cahoots with the evil fiends that the sanguine ape race was implicated and almost wiped out. In the Battle Era, the sanguine ape world was a super large world. Now, countless eras have passed and the sanguine ape world has yet to recover. It can only be considered a greater world now. Wang Dong said, "The sanguine ape race in the evil fiend battlefield are the descendants of the sanguine apes in spirits of the battle era back then. They have to endure the heavy sins of their ancestors. The sanguine ape world is considered lucky." Gong Suanyu said, "Throughout history, countless worlds and races were annihilated in that catastrophe." Qin Zhong said, "Since ancient times, evil has never triumphed over righteousness. So what if he was Great Emperor Combat? He couldn't defeat the will and power of the living beings of the 10,000 races in the end since he was in cahoots with the evil fiend. Since it's a descendant of the sin spirits, let us kill it." Shun Yu drew his sword and prepared to kill the young monkey. "Hold on." Suddenly, Su Zimo spoke. "Peak Master Su, what's wrong?" Shun Yu turned around and asked. The others looked at Su Zimo as well. Su Zimo said, "This young monkey is only a few months old. Even if it's killed, there won't be any battle merits. Let it live." Actually, a thought flashed through his mind. Could this young monkey be related to Monkey by blood? Although that was unlikely, as long as there was a sliver of possibility, Su Zimo could not let this young monkey die here. Su Zimo did not care about what the evil fiends or sin spirits were. He only knew that Monkey was the first brother he made in Tianhuang mainland. When he was still weak and not strong enough, Monkey had risked his life to save him from the mouths of the Grey Wolves and the swords of Foundation establishment cultivators. If this young monkey was Monkey's child, he would definitely not allow others to hurt it. Amitabha. Monk Ju Jian chanted a Buddhist proclamation softly. "You are benevolent. Peak Master Su." However, Shun Yu was indifferent. Shun Yu said, "This monkey doesn't pose much of a threat now, but one day, he will grow up and become a ferocious and bloody sin spirit. We'll kill him while he's still young." It can also be considered as eliminating a latent danger to prevent living beings of the other trichiliocosm from dying in his hands. "Brother Shen, forget it." Wang Dong persuaded from the side, It's just a young monkey. Actually, Lin Xuanzhen, Wang Dong and the others had no intention of attacking. In their hearts, they were still resistant against the idea of dealing with a young monkey that was a few months old. The young monkey was like a newborn baby and was like a piece of white paper. It did not know right from wrong and did not have any hatred. It was not guarded against strangers like them at all. Killing such a young monkey was like killing an unarmed child. Lin Xuanzhen, Wang Dong and the others were all perfected immortals and naturally not inclined towards such behavior. When Shen Yu saw Wang Dong's persuasion, he no longer insisted and shrugged slightly. Whatever. Even if we don't kill it, how long can such a monkey cub survive in the evil fiend battlefield? With that said, Shen Yu walked out of the cave. Before long, a black shadow suddenly darted out from the darkness of the fork and pounced towards Shen Yu, letting out a low roar. Shen Yu's reaction was extremely fast. He retreated sideways immediately and summoned his immortal sword in reverse, stabbing in the direction of the black shadow. Instantly, dozens of sword shadows appeared from the sword and enveloped the black shadow instantly. The black shadow grunted and a few blood beams burst forth from its body. However, the black shadow did not show any signs of retreating. Instead, it became even more berserk and its eyes shone with a red light as it charged towards Shen Yu with no regard for its life. Lin Xuanzhen and the others hurried over and took a closer look. The black shadow was a tall female ape covered in blood and dust. Apart from the new injuries dealt by Shen Yu, there were also countless old injuries that had yet to scab. The injuries on the female ape's thigh were the most serious. The flesh around the wound had already rotted, revealing the white bones inside, and she limped as she walked. Evil creature, you must have a death wish. Shen Yu's expression was cold. Although the female ape had a paradise void cultivation as well, her injuries were way too severe and she was no match for Shen Yu. Shen Yu attacked once more. That sword strike was incomparably stunning and the sword light was resplendent. Instantly, thousands of sword shadows burst forth. Unfathomable and illusory, it was impossible to tell where the true body of the immortal sword was. Under the illumination of the sword light, the female ape felt a sharp pain in her eyes and 2 streams of blood tears flowed uncontrollably. However, she still widened her eyes as much as possible and charged forward recklessly. She wanted to protect her child, even if it meant risking her life. Shen Yu's gaze was cold and a hint of disdain flashed through his eyes. That strike of his released the intent of the illusory sword Dao completely. Even in the female ape's peak state, she could not defend against that move, let alone the fact that she was currently injured. The true body of the immortal sword hid behind countless illusory sword shadows and stabbed towards the glabella of the female ape. The moment his immortal sword was about to enter the female ape's glabella, an emerald green light suddenly flashed and pierced through the countless illusions, striking the spine of his immortal sword. Chapter 2794, Chapter 2794, Question. Chapter 2794, Question. Shen Yu shuddered. Not only did the emerald green light destroy his illusory sword Dao, it also struck the weakest point of his immortal sword and was extremely powerful. His arm that wielded the sword shuddered and he felt a sense of numbness. Shen Yu focused his gaze. The emerald green light was a green sword with a sharp edge that was even above his destiny immortal sword. His attack was obstructed and the trajectory of his sword deviated. The power of his immortal sword dissipated and he was naturally no longer a threat to the female ape in front of him. However, the female ape's eyes shone with a sanguine light without any intention of stopping. The green sword did not stop at all. The moment it separated from Shen Yu's immortal sword, it suddenly shifted sideways and landed on the female ape, flicking the latter gently. The green sword was not even as thick as the arm of the female ape. However, with such a casual flick, the female ape's charge stopped immediately. Her tall body was thrown high and she landed steadily on the ground. Everyone's hearts skipped a beat when they saw that. At the same time that the green sword broke through the illusory sword Dao, it collided with Shen Yu's immortal sword and released an incomparably ferocious power. In a flash, the green sword landed on the female ape and transformed into a gentle force. The change between toughness and gentleness revealed the exquisite control the sword wielder had over his strength. Who is it? 1. Shunyu hollered and took a deep breath. He circulated his blood qi and held his sword horizontally in front of his chest. He took a step back and focused on defense. Peak Master Su? Shunyu turned around and saw Su Zimo standing not far away with the green sword in his hands. Lin Xuanzhen, Wang Dong and the others were stunned as well. Earlier on, they only saw a figure flash past them. To think that the person who attacked was Su Zimo. What was going on? Peak Master Su could actually see through Brother Shen's illusory sword Dao and even force him back with a single strike? Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu and the others exchanged glances and could see the confusion and disbelief in each other's eyes. The greatest possibility was that Shunyu did not use his full strength and Peak Master Su Zhu accumulated all his strength to attack him unprepared, resulting in the earlier effect. In reality, Su Zimo had only used 30% of his strength earlier on because he was afraid of injuring Shunyu. Peak Master Su Zhu, what's the meaning of this? Shunyu frowned and his expression darkened with a hint of anger in his tone. Earlier on, Su Zimo stopped him from killing that monkey cub. Although he was displeased, he did not say anything. After all, the monkey cub that was a few months old posed no threat to them and did not possess any battle merits. However, the female ape in front of him clearly had strong hostility towards them. Furthermore, they could obtain 10 battle merits by killing this female ape. Now that Peak Master Su Zhu stopped him again, Shunyu could not help but feel a little angry. Furthermore, both parties had just exchanged blows. This was much more serious than mere verbal disputes. When Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu and the others saw that, they hurried over. Although everyone did not say anything, they looked at Su Zimo with doubt. Peak Master Su Zhu. Shunyu said in a deep voice, although your cultivation realm is inferior to mine, you're a peak master. As such, I've never ever looked down on you in the slightest. Peak Master Su, I'd like to ask you about your intentions. It's fine that you protected that monkey cub earlier on, but what's the meaning of you saving this beast now? Lin Xuanzhen, Wang Dong and the others looked at Su Zimo as well. Indeed, they could not understand Su Zimo's actions. When the female ape saw so many top experts running out of the cave, she quietened down as well. The red light in her eyes gradually retracted and she did not attack rashly. Furthermore, through Shunyu's words earlier on, she at least knew that her child was not dead. The female ape looked at Su Zimo's back view and a hint of doubt flashed through her eyes. She did not understand why this perfected spirit from the outside world would appear to save her and even protect her child. Although she did not know the reason, the female ape could vaguely sense that the green-robed man was not hostile towards her. I have a few questions I want to ask her, Su Zimo said. And then, Shunyu stared fixedly at Su Zimo and asked. Su Zimo was silent. Forget it, forget it. Seeing that the atmosphere was a little tense, Wang Dong coughed gently and stood out to smooth things over. This beast is useful to Peak Master Su. Let Peak Master Su ask him first before we talk. As he said that, Wang Dong nudged Shunyu, indicating for him to go out and calm down first lest they had more conflicts. Shunyu took a few steps and sneered when he saw that Wang Dong and the others were still there. Peak Master Su wants to question the beast. Why are you guys still there? Wang Dong said, I'll watch over here to prevent this beast from injuring others. Shunyu pursed his lips. As a Peak Master Su Zhu repelled me with a casual attack. Do you think he needs your protection, Brother Wang? Wang Dong glanced at Su Zimo with an awkward expression. Su Zimo had a calm expression and was not angry. After all, Shunyu was the number 1 of illusory sword peak. It was understandable for him to be indignant that his illusory sword Dao was dispelled by a single attack. Furthermore, as a peak master, he could not be bothered to argue with Shunyu. Suddenly, Lin Xuanzhen said, You guys can leave. I'll guard here. Wang Dong and the others naturally had no objections to Lin Xuanzhen's words. Shunyu shrugged and turned to leave. Lin Xuanzhen took a few steps back, giving Su Zimo and the female ape sufficient space. At the same time, if anything happened at that distance, she would be able to attack in time. Right then, the young monkey in the cave heard the commotion outside and crawled out as well. When it saw the female ape, its face was filled with joy as it cried out. When the female ape saw the young monkey, the malevolent aura on her body vanished instantly and her gaze softened. All living beings had maternal instincts. The female ape leaned forward and hugged the young monkey. After checking that there were no injuries, she heaved a sigh of relief. Of course, the female ape still looked at Suzimo warily. Suzimo arrived in front of the female ape and circulated his true essence, condensing an ancient mirror in his palm that revealed the image of monkey. "He's also from your sanguine ape race. Do you know him?" Suzimo asked. The female ape looked at the image on the ancient mirror with a confused expression. She stared at it for a while before shaking her head. Suzimo heaved a sigh of relief. From the looks of it, monkey should not be in the evil fiend battlefield. At the same time, he was a little disappointed that he did not obtain any news about monkey. The female ape was covered in injuries and licked the wounds on her body carefully with a fatigued expression. "Where's his father?" Suzimo asked. The female ape paused in her licking and fell silent. After a long while, she said, "He died in battle." What she meant was probably that he was killed by the living beings of the 10,000 races that descended here. In the evil fiend battlefield, even an adult perfected spirit sanguine ape could face danger at any moment, let alone a cub. Even so, the female ape did not abandon her child and was even willing to fight to the death. Was this the so-called sin spirit? Suzimo could not sense any difference between the female ape before him and the living beings of the Trichilia chasm. The only difference was that she bore the title of a sin spirit. Chapter 2795, Chapter 2795 Departure. Chapter 2795 Departure. Perhaps it was because the female ape was protecting her son with all her might that he felt compassionate. Perhaps it was because the sight of the sanguine ape race reminded him of monkey. Or perhaps he had an inexplicable resistance towards the evil fiend battlefield. In short, Suzimo did not want to hurt them. Suzimo took out some healing medicine from his storage bag and placed them in front of the female ape under her puzzled gaze. He roughly explained how to consume the medicine. The female ape looked at Suzimo, still somewhat in disbelief. These living beings from the outside world wanted to kill them in exchange for battle merits. Why was this person so kind? Suzimo did not explain either. Suddenly, a few green lights shot out from his fingertip and entered the female ape's body instantly. That action was extremely fast, and by the time the female ape reacted, it was already too late. The female ape was enraged and thought that Suzimo was casting a dharmic curse on her. The blood glint in her eyes shone once more as she bared her teeth at Suzimo, wanting to injure him. However, before long, the female ape's killing intent calmed down with a bewildered expression. The green lights contained immense life force and did not harm her at all. After entering her body, they healed her injuries rapidly. Even the wound on her thigh that was corroded by a curse technique began to develop some tender flesh, showing signs of gradual improvement as her bloodline circulated. At that moment, the female ape finally understood that the human cultivator was healing her. The female ape knelt on the ground and clasped her hands, kowtowing to Suzimo repeatedly with an emotional expression. The young monkey seemed to have sensed Suzerno's goodwill as well and ran circles around his feet, squeaking. Suzimo looked into the young monkey's clear and pitch-black eyes. Those eyes were so innocent and devoid of hatred. In fact, it did not even know that the moment it was born, it carried the burden of a sin spirit and could be killed at any moment in exchange for battle merit. Suzimo was helpless against their fates. He sighed internally and remained silent for a moment before turning to leave. Suzimo arrived beside Lin Xuanzhen and Beiming Shui, and the three of them walked side by side towards the exit of the cave. Lin Xuanzhen did not say anything about Suzerno's decision. After a while, she suddenly said, "Peak Master Su, the evil fiend battlefield is not a suitable place for you." Suzimo was silent. Lin Xuanzhen continued, "The reason why we entered the evil fiend battlefield was to kill the evil fiends and sin spirits. The righteous and evil are irreconcilable. Even if you save that sanguine ape today, she will repay kindness with ingratitude if we meet again in the future. Evil fiends are evil fiends and sin spirits are sin spirits. What do they know about human nature? Perhaps. Su Zimo did not argue and merely replied indifferently. Right then, voices sounded from outside the cave. Everyone, do you believe that Peak Master Su Zhu will definitely let that beast go? It was Shen Yu's voice. Although they were separated by the cave, the Green Lotus True Body's hearing was extremely strong and he could still hear Shen Yu's voice clearly. Wang Dong lowered his voice and said, "So be it. It's just 10 battle merits. It's not a big deal. It's fine as long as there's no internal strife between all of us." Shen Yu harumphed coldly. "All of you saw it earlier on. He actually fought with me for that beast. What's the meaning of this? As the peak master of a peak in the sword world, does he treat us as disciples of the same world?" Wang Dong persuaded, "Brother Shen, you're exaggerating. Peak Master Su isn't targeting you. It's just that the situation was critical and we didn't have time to communicate. He could only save the female ape first." Qin Zhong suddenly said, "Actually, I feel that Peak Master Su Zhu is like a burden in our team and seems a little redundant. Not to mention that he can't help much in combat, we have to spend more than half of our energy taking care of him." Pausing for a moment, Qin Zhong added, "Of course, it's our duty to protect our fellow disciples. However, because of him and junior sister Beiming, we 11 lose many opportunities to obtain battle merits." "That's nothing," Monk Ju Jian said in a deep voice. "From my observations, it's mainly because Peak Master Su Zhu is very scholarly and benevolent. He doesn't seem like someone who is decisive in killing, even when dealing with the evil fiends and sin spirits. It's acceptable for us to release a beast today. However, what should we do the next time we encounter any evil fiends and Peak Master Su Zhu becomes benevolent and wants to let them go as well?" When he heard that, even Wang Dong fell silent. Right then, Wang Dong seemed to have sensed that Lin Xuanzhen, Su Zimo and Beiming Shui were about to walk out of the cave and instructed hurriedly, "Stop talking." Before long, Su Zimo and the other two arrived outside the cave. Su Zimo looked at Wang Dong, Shen Yu and the others. "I didn't kill that female ape." "Ha." Shen Yu could not help but sneer. "See, what did I say?" Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu and the others frowned. Qin Zhong could not help but say as well, "Peak Master Su Zhu, we came to the evil fiend battlefield to fight and obtain battle merits for your sword burial peak. That's 10 battle merits for that female ape, but you let her go just like that. Isn't it a little?" "Fellow Daoist Qin, you are right." Su Zimo nodded and removed the blessed Heaven World badge from his waist, handing it to Lin Xuanzhen. "There are 10 battle merits on it. It's equivalent to the female ape's life, right?" Everyone focused their gazes and saw that Su Zerno's blessed Heaven World badge had 20 battle merits. In other words, apart from the 10 battle merits that Lin Xuanzhen gave him initially, Su Zimo also obtained 10 battle merits himself. Right from the beginning, no one knew how Su Zimo got those 10 battle merit. All right. Wang Dong hurriedly stood out to smooth things over and said with a smile, "That's good. With these 10 battle merits, it's equivalent to killing that female ape." Lin Xuanzhen, Gong Suanyu, Shen Yu and the others did not say anything and the atmosphere turned cold. A moment later, Shen Yu suddenly said, "Peak Master Su Zhu, I might have offended you in my words earlier on. Please forgive me. However, I still want to say something. Why don't you and junior sister Beiming leave first?" Fu. Beiming Shui could tell the disdain in the hearts of Shen Yu and the others and did not argue. She merely sneered and said to Su Zimo, "Master, let's go." Wang Dong had a helpless expression and could only laugh bitterly. He said tactfully, "Peak Master Su Zhu, junior sister Beiming, don't worry. The evil fiend battlefield is too dangerous after all. At the very least, you won't be in any danger when you return to the blessed heaven world." Su Zimo was silent. Actually, the reason why he entered the evil fiend battlefield was partly because he was curious and wanted to take a look. On the other hand, he wanted to protect the perfected immortals of the sword world. Now that he knew the true thoughts of everyone, Su Zimo no longer insisted. With Lin Xuanzhen leading the sword world team and the myriad sword formation, They should not be in any danger in the evil fiend battlefield. At that thought, Suzimo cupped fists slightly. In that case, I'll bid farewell to everyone and wait for your triumphant return in the blessed heaven world. All right. Peak Master Su is wise. When they saw Suzimo agree to leave, Shenyu, Qin Zhong and the others were invigorated and could not help but praise. The worry on their faces dissipated rapidly. Everyone felt relieved and could not suppress the excitement in their hearts. Without Su Zhu and Beiming Shui, it was equivalent to getting rid of a huge burden. They could finally let loose and display their skills to kill to their heart's content in the evil fiend battlefield. Chapter 2796, Chapter 2796, Spirit of the Night. Chapter 2796, Spirit of the Night. Blessed Heaven World Square. Many living beings of the 10,000 races from the Trichiliocosm would gather here. On the one hand, they were observing the terrain and environment of the evil fiend battlefield, watching the battles of the evil fiends and sin spirits to accumulate experience. On the other hand, there were people like Lu Yun, Yu Lan, and the others who were paying attention to their perfected immortal disciples of the various worlds. Less than half a day after Suzimo, Lin Xuanzhen, and the others entered the evil fiend battlefield, Peak Masters Lu Yun, Yu Lan, Feng Shu, Bai Tianxing, and Meng Hao had yet to leave. Naturally, the five of them noticed the scene that Lin Xuanzhen and the others had just experienced in the evil fiend battlefield. It's good for Brother Su to head out as well. Lu Yun said, it's his first time in the blessed heaven world and he probably doesn't know much about the evil fiends and sin spirits. As such, he can't get decisive to kill them. He'll be fine after observing here for a few more days and getting used to it. Yes. Yu Lan nodded as well. Without Brother Su and Beiming Shui, Xuanzhen and the others can do whatever they want. The chances of obtaining 1,000 battle merits in 10 days will increase greatly. As everyone discussed, a gigantic screen suddenly split open and two figures walked out. It was Suzimo and Beiming Shui. The two of them returned to the blessed heaven world square and the cracks on the gigantic screen behind them closed in the blink of an eye without leaving any traces. Aren't those two from the sword world? They seem to have come out in less than half a day. Someone noticed Suzimo and Beiming Shui and asked softly. Yes, I watched these 10 people from the sword world for a while just now. The two of them were useless inside. They're just two burdens. The other 8 people of the sword world have to protect the two of them while fighting the evil fiends and sin spirits. I also noticed earlier on that the green-robed cultivator seemed to sympathize with a sin spirit beast inside. I wonder what he's thinking. Lower your voices. A perfected spirit whispered, I heard that the green-robed cultivator is the peak master of the 9th sword peak of the sword world and has a noble status. Another cultivator said, I heard that too. So he's the peak master of the 9th sword peak that the sword world established? Why did they find a celestial being perfected immortal as a peak master? Isn't his cultivation way too weak? In the blessed heaven world square, some perfected spirits glanced at Suzimo and whispered. Probably because they wanted to retain Suzimo's dignity, Lu Yun and the others did not mention anything about what happened in the evil fiend battlefield and merely consoled him. Suzimo was worried, so he stayed here. His spirit consciousness entered the gigantic screen to observe the situation of Lin Xuanzhen, Wang Dong and the others. A day passed and Lin Xuanzhen and the others continued forward. Although they encountered some unexpected situations in the evil fiend battlefield, they were not dangerous and they gained a lot. Furthermore, without needing to protect Suzimo and Beiming Shui, the 8 of them were clearly more flexible. If they encountered a large number of evil fiends and sin spirits, the 8 of them could form the myriad sword formation at any time and use it to fight enemies. They could also disperse at any time and chase after them individually. In just a day, Lin Xuanzhen and the others had killed a total of 200 battle merit. However, something unexpected happened once again during this period of time, causing Lu Yun, Yu Lan and the others to break out in cold sweat. As Lin Xuanzhen and the others advanced, they encountered a plain-clothed sword cultivator. In the evil fiend battlefield, there were not only the evil fiends like the Yaksha, Rakshasa, and Asura races, there were also living beings from various races, including human cultivators. It was not rare to encounter a sword cultivator inside. However, this plain-clothed sword cultivator had a powerful background and was one of the 10 great evil fiend. Every single one of the 10 great evil fiends had comprehended peerless divine powers and were experts at the supreme perfected spirit realm. Less than a day after entering the evil fiend battlefield, they encountered one of the 10 great evil fiends. The 10 great evil fiends were even stronger than most of the supreme perfected spirits on the battle merits Jade Steely. In fact, there was no need for the two parties to fight. Lin Xuanzhen and the others had almost no chance of winning. However, for some unknown reason, the plain-clothed sword cultivator did not attack when he saw Lin Xuanzhen and the others. Perhaps it was because he was disdainful or for some other reason. Lin Xuanzhen and the others took a detour hurriedly and avoided him. Su Zimo stared at the plain-clothed sword cultivator for a while. The plain-clothed sword cultivator had a majestic figure and wore rough linen clothes. His hair was disheveled and he had an ugly beard. He looked a little unkempt and had a wine gourd on one side of his waist and a rusty sword on the other. Indeed, he's very strong. Su Zimo nodded to himself. Even through the gigantic screen, he could still sense a hint of danger from the plain-clothed sword cultivator with just his spirit consciousness. What's the name of this person? Su Zimo turned to look at Lu Yun and the others and asked softly. Lu Yun shook his head. I'm not sure. Everyone calls him the plain-clothed sword cultivator, but no one knows his name. At the side, Bai Tianxing said casually, it's just a sin spirit. It's fine for them to just have a code name. In any case, their fates are already decided. They'll be killed by the perfected spirits of the Trichiliocosm sooner or later. The so-called evil fiend battlefield was like a hunting ground for the living beings of the 10,000 races. The evil fiends and sin spirits inside were prey for the living beings of the 10,000 races. Are there no exceptions? Su Zimo asked, can the living beings in the evil fiend battlefield ever get a chance to leave? Of course not. Bai Tianxing shook his head. Not to mention the evil fiend battlefield, even the living beings of the 10 sin grounds have to endure this for generations. Before Bai Tianxing could finish, he seemed to have thought of something and suddenly paused, changing his words. There seems to be an exception. Lu Yun nodded as well. I heard that hundreds of years ago, an evil fiend was pardoned by the blessed heaven world and disappeared after leaving the evil fiend battlefield. Yu Lan said, I've heard of it as well. It's said that the evil fiend went on a killing spree the moment he was placed in the evil fiend battlefield. Many paragons and monster incarnates of the living beings of the 10,000 races died tragically in his hand. In just a few years, he became one of the 10 great evil fiends. That was the fastest speed in history. Half of the paragons on the battle merits Jade Steely in the past died in his hands. Meng Hao was speechless when he heard that and exclaimed, he was that strong. Yu Lan nodded. It's said that this evil fiend was born for killing. He did not only possess sharp fangs and claws. Every single bone and scale on his body was a killing weapon. When he heard that, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He frowned and asked curiously, what race is he? I think it's the divine Hu race. Yu Lan said, this race is extremely rare even in the upper world and there aren't many of them. However, every single one of them has heaven-defying combat strength. Could it be Night Spirit? Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he was surprised and delighted. The first person he thought of was Night Spirit. Su Zimo took a deep breath of air and asked once more, does this evil fiend have a name? Yes. Lu Yun said, he once occupied 2 mountains in the evil fiend battlefield. One of them was engraved with the word night and the other with the word spirit one. Many people called him the spirit of the night. Su Zimo was delighted. There was no mistake. From the looks of it, the so-called spirit of the night was Night Spirit. Chapter 2797, Chapter 2797, Revenge of the Heavenly Eye World. Chapter 2797, Revenge of the Heavenly Eye World. 7. Why would the blessed heaven world pardon that spirit of the night? Su Zimo asked. I'm not sure. Lu Yun shook his head. The people of the blessed heaven world are extremely mysterious and difficult to meet. They don't explain their actions to others. Pausing for a moment, Lu Yun saw that Su Zimo seemed to be interested in the spirit of the night and said, "I don't know much about the spirit of the night. I've only heard a few rumors." Su Zimo nodded. No matter what, the greatest gain for him on this trip to the blessed heaven world was probably news of Night Spirit. Although he did not know why the blessed heaven world pardoned Night Spirit or where he went, he was certain that Night Spirit was growing at a rapid speed and was not inferior to his Green Lotus true body. The 7 of them brothers had ascended to the upper world. Up till now, he had only received news of Night Spirit and nothing about the other 6. The upper world was way too vast and the Trichilia chasm was boundless. If the 7 brothers wanted to reunite, who knew how long they would have to wait? "Brother Su, why don't you return to the residence to rest? There's no need to keep watch here," Lu Yun said. Based on the current situation, Lin Xuanzhen and the others should not encounter any danger. "It's fine if we just have 1 or 2 people to keep an eye on things here," Feng Shu said. "The living beings of the 10,000 races of the various worlds are gathered on Blessed Island. Apart from the Blessed Pavilion, there are also some private trading markets that we can take a look at. Why don't I bring you around Blessed Island for a look, Brother Su?" "Thank you for your kind intentions, Brother Feng. I'll take a walk myself." Su Zimo rejected with a smile and left the Blessed Pavilion with Beiming Shui. He looked around Blessed Island before returning to the residence to rest. In the blink of an eye, the second day passed. Lu Yun and Yu Lan returned to the residence with relaxed expressions. Lu Yun said to Su Zimo, "There's nothing much going on over there." Lin Xuanzhen and the others were quite successful. They obtained 200 battle merits on the first day and 100 on the second day. Peak Masters Lu Yun, Yu Lan, Feng Shu and Bai Tianxing took shifts. With 2 of them watching over there, the remaining 2 could return here to rest and conserve their energy. As Lu Yun, Yu Lan and Su Zimo chatted, Lu Yun suddenly said, "Actually, there's another benefit to renting such a residence on Blessed Island." "Oh?" Su Zimo had a questioning expression. Lu Yun explained, "Under normal circumstances, killing and fighting are prohibited in the Blessed Heaven world. However, since we rented this residence, this place is equivalent to the private territory of the Sword World. If there are any fights in this residence, we won't be punished by the rules of the Blessed Heaven world." Su Zimo said in a deep voice, "In that case, if living beings from other worlds barge in, we have every reason to kill them." "Exactly. Therefore, after coming to the Blessed Heaven world, under normal circumstances, you must not enter the private residences of other worlds." Yu Lan said, "There's another benefit to such private residences. Fighting and killing are prohibited in the Blessed Heaven world. However, if someone is bent on killing the other party and is willing to destroy everything indiscriminately, it's difficult to guard against them. Most of the time, life and death are decided in an instant." Su Zimo thought for a moment and understood. If any immortal king expert on the streets outside suddenly attacked a certain perfected spirit, that perfected spirit would almost certainly die. Although the immortal king expert would be punished and killed by the rules of the Blessed Heaven world thereafter, there was no way of saving the perfected spirit who died. Renting such a residence could prevent such a situation from happening. Once outsiders barged in, the Sword World could take action on its own and kill the danger in advance. That explains why a residence as such requires 10 battle merits each day. So, there's such a reasoning behind it. Su Zimo nodded to himself. In the next few days, Su Zimo would occasionally go to the Blessed Pavilion to watch. Lin Xuanzhen and the others were rather successful in the Evil Fiend battlefield. Although they encountered some dangers during this period of time, they managed to resolve everything properly. On the 7th day, Lin Xuanzhen and the others had already obtained TO battle merits in the Evil Fiend battlefield. This speed was 3 days faster than everyone had initially expected. Of course, Lin Xuanzhen and the others did not return to the Blessed Pavilion immediately. Instead, they continued to search for the evil fiends and sin spirits in the Evil Fiend battlefield to obtain battle merits. They could only stay in the Evil Fiend battlefield for 10 days. Now that there were 3 days remaining, No one was willing to waste such a rare opportunity. Furthermore, for Lin Xuanzhen, Wang Dong and the others, this was a once-in-a-thousand-year opportunity for them to sharpen their sword Dao. If they only sparred in the sword world, they would never be able to unleash the unique killing power of the sword Dao. Only the baptism and refinement of blood could create a peerless sword Dao. In the blink of an eye, it was already the 8th day since Lin Xuanzhen and the others entered the evil fiend battlefield. On this day, Su Zimo was resting with his eyes closed in the residence and comprehending his dharmic Dao when hurried footsteps sounded from outside. Immediately after, the door of the residence was knocked open and a faint smell of blood wafted in. Su Zimo's heart sank. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and arrived in the courtyard in a flash. At the same time, Feng Shu and Bai Tianqing walked out of their rooms one after another. Lu Yun and Yu Lan charged in with livid expressions. Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and 5 others behind them looked wretched. It was clear that they had suffered injuries of varying degree. Fortunately, their lives were not in danger. However, the situation was not great for Lin Xuanzhen. Lin Xuanzhen lay in Yu Lan's arms with her eyes closed. Her lips were pale and her aura was weak. The life force in her body was barely surviving as well. What's going on? Bai Tianqing was enraged and asked loudly. Lu Yun's expression was murderous as he gritted his teeth. People from the heavenly eye world suddenly came. When they entered the evil fiend battlefield, they went for Lin Xuanzhen and the others right away. Heavenly eye world. Su Zimo's expression turned cold. Fuck, the heavenly eye world again. Bai Tianqing cursed. Feng Shu had an ugly expression as well. Although King Cold Eye had once said harsh words, the past few days had been calm and peaceful. Everyone thought that this matter would be over for the time being. To think that the revenge of the heavenly eye world would come so quickly, Feng Shu asked coldly, was it Xia Yin of the heavenly eye world? Xia Yin was rank 1 on the battle merits Jade Steely. No. Lu Yun shook his head. If Xia Yin had come, Lin Xuanzhen and the others would probably have been wiped out. It was another heavenly eye perfected spirit on the battle merits Jade Steely, Xiong Meng. A piece of information flashed through Su Zimo's mind. Xiong Meng, rank 57 on the battle merits Jade Steely. Bai Tianqing frowned and asked, didn't Lin Xuanzhen and the others possess the myriad sword formation and the blessed heaven world badge? How did things end up like this? In the opinion of Bai Tianqing and the others, even if the myriad sword formation could not stop Xiong Meng and the others, Lin Xuanzhen and the others could use the blessed heaven world badge to leave the evil fiend battlefield. At the mention of that, Lu Yun clenched his fists and sighed deeply. Yu Lan looked at Lin Xuanzhen in her arms with a sorrowful expression. Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, and the others lowered their heads in shame. A moment later, Lu Yun said, the peerless divine power comprehended by Xiong Meng was astral imprisonment. Under the envelopment of that peerless divine power, the myriad sword formation couldn't be circulated and they couldn't unleash much power at all. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.